What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto's first kiss awakened a curse, making every girl fall for him? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Jun Namikaze was a kind and polite person, but like many others she had a limit to her patience. Unlike her husband however, the man in question ignored her incessant stare as she drummed her finger on the side of her arm. But right now patient she was not, Madara. The man stopped as he had finished placing his gunbai on his back, his gloved fingers making his hair rustle. I told you already, nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to finish off Hashirama once and for all. He sat at the edge of the couch as he made sure the seals along his wrist were intact. He'd need all of his weapons at the ready in this fight. Fine, if you won't listen to me then I'm leaving you, I can't take this anymore. The blonde woman shouted as she placed her hands subconsciously against her flat stomach. I love you Madara, but if you cling to this hatred for Hashirama and the Senju then I really will leave. She was interrupted as Madara stood to face her. Then leave, he shouted as he pointed to the door, his words escaping his lips before he realized what he said. You've changed, and not for the better. Madara's eyes softened at the smallest of a fraction, but whatever love he felt for Jun was stamped out as hatred showed once more in his dark onyx eyes. Tears hanging at the edges of her eyes, she slowly made her way out of the house as she heard her lover one last time. He gave out an anguish-filled, frustrated yell as he punched through the wall next to him. The yellow cream plaster covering him and the floor as he pulled it free. Hashirama. I'm going to kill you, he growled out, his eyes blazing with the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. With a sniffle and painful irony, the clouds of the night seemed to open up, hiding her tears to the world. Jun cried as she sat on the bench in the Leaf Village. She had been patient with her lover, and not for just this one single night, but many others as well. Each and every time it happened she'd always been able to get him to stop and breath. Not anymore, not since Izuna's passing that is. I just thought that he was strong enough that he wouldn't develop the same sickness. She wanted to, oh so badly, to tell him that she was carrying his son. But who would let their son be raised by a power-crazed man who would go to any lengths to see the creator of their village fall? Tonight was to give it one more shot, to try and get through to him. But it was like his eyes, supposedly the window to a person's soul, were merely clouded by hate and nothing more. She jolted in her spot as her thoughts had dulled her trained senses to the point her friend was able to grab her shoulder. Looking up, her friend's reassuring smile eased her spirit greatly. Thank you Senna. You're always there to help me. I used to hate you so much, it irritated me that you'd always insult my skills as a ninja, but as we grew up I couldn't stop thinking about you. You were the most beautiful woman I'd ever met, and you always will be. The minister nodded as Isaiah finished their exchanging of vows. Do you Isaiah Namikaze take Kurara Kazumi to be your wife? Will you love her, comfort her, honor and keep her, in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, for better or worse, in sadness and in joy, to cherish and continually bestow upon her your heart's deepest devotion, forsaking all others, keep yourself only unto her as long as you both shall live? Their longtime teammate Yasushi spoke as he stood before them. Isaiah smiled as he nodded, I will. Yasushi continued. Do you Kurara Kazumi take Isaiah Namikaze to be your husband? Will you love him, comfort him, honor him and keep him, in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, in sadness and in joy, to cherish and continually bestow upon him your heart's deepest devotion, forsaking all others, keep yourself only unto him as long as you both shall live? Kurara smiled as her blonde hair framed her face. I do. Isaiah continued to smile as he and his soon-to-be wife exchanged their rings. Yasushi then continued as he smiled, you may now kiss the bride. Isaiah's smile grew bigger as he kissed Kurara on the lips, sanctifying their marriage. He pulled back as he saw his bride smile with tears of joy. Kurara and Isaiah's friend Yasushi gave an unusual cheer as he hugged them, happy for them. When he pulled back Isaiah gave him a nod of thanks. Now if you don't mind we'll be going. His smile still shining brightly as he and Kurara left hand in hand. Isaiah looked up as he heard Kurara burst into his room, finding herself in his lap. Where's the fire? He asked. She smiled as she kissed him. Guess what? She spoke as Isaiah raised an eyebrow. You burnt lunch again? Teasing her about her horrible culinary skills, getting a punch to the shoulder. No you ass. I'm pregnant. She spoke as she cried into his arms. Izaya's eyes went wide in shock. "I'm a dad?" he asked, still not entirely believing the words. "Yes you are." She cheered again as she just couldn't stay calm. Izaya's eyes slowly closed as he heard the sounds of Yasushi burning in absolute torment. Giving one last look at his beloved wife, he ran a weak hand over her cheek. He'd be with her soon enough. Minato cried as the newly instated Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, spoke to him. "I really am sorry, Minato. Know that they were great shinobi that held the will of fire in them greater than most others. They didn't die in vain, they gave their lives to protect others." He placed his hands on the boy's head as he tried to cheer him up. Minato looked down sadly at his boy as he and Kushina prevented the Nine-Tails Claw from killing their child. "Naruto, we love you so much." Kushina spoke as Minato put his hand together, seal. One Naruto smiled as he left the village with Jiraiya for his training trip, not knowing the events to come. Jiraiya gave a wide-eyed look as he stared into the eyes of his student, the Sharingan spinning rapidly. Naruto had the Sharingan? How is this possible? Minato and Kushina weren't Uchiha and Minato's parents weren't Uchiha, that much he knew. So it left him stunned. 1 year into training, he frowned as he saw the mild smirk come from Naruto as his eyes helped him to predict Jiraiya's rapidly approaching fist. "Nice try, Jiraiya-sensei, but my eyes can see everything you do." His leg snapped out at Jiraiya, who hit him in the chest before a Rasengan fell apart and Jiraiya hit him in the side with his palm. "Naruto, those eyes don't make you a proficient ninja. Don't get arrogant, that has been the downfall of many Uchiha. There are many things that cripple a Sharingan. They are meant to give you a boost, to enhance the massive talent that is already there. Do not rely on your eyes, Naruto." Naruto grit his teeth at the Sanin's words, nodding begrudgingly. "Yes, sensei. 2nd year of training. Naruto, I'm sorry, I have no choice but to seal your Sharingan. It unfortunately has done the same as I've seen in many others over the years." He raised his hand into a ram seal as he placed chakra into the seal on Naruto's forehead, the boy not resisting as he was out cold. The sealing was confirmed successful when the seal faded into the teen's skin. "I'm sorry, it's for the best. You don't need it tainting your mind. I tried my best to guide you. But some things are beyond even me." Naruto frowned as he thought back to yesterday's events. He'd finally made his move. So long he'd wanted to know who his mom was, what she looked like, his move. He had gotten Jiraiya drunk enough to finally get the older man to tell him about his mother. He happened to have a picture of her while she was pregnant with him while she talked to Tsunade and Shizune. She was truly a beautiful woman. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki, the elegant Red Death of Konoha. Reaching success, he tried to push for more about his dad, but he will always quote, "Sorry brat, I ain't that drunk." He cursed as he left to brood, his reason for being her spent. He sat as he brushed a hand through his shoulder-length black-streaked blonde hair. He and Jiraiya had no idea why his hair was changing, but Jiraiya had speculated it had to do with the repression of his Sharingan, that something involving his chakra was physically affecting him. Somehow that was new thoughts coming to jutsu creation, a topic he had talked to Jiraiya many times about. With his training he had found that awakening his Sharingan, his affinity had somehow went from wind being strongest to it being the weakest. His abilities with the other natures had seemingly increased. He surmised that this meant he would be able to make his very first jutsu a lot easier if it was an earth style, and seeing as he wanted to honor his mother he would do so. He had heard from Jiraiya many earth-style jutsus focused on defense and brutal size. A jutsu that was used by many was the earth style, Golem Jutsu. It made a humanoid figure to defend or assault the user or the opponent. Since earth style was so easy to form for him, he decided that was the way to start. "I guess I could make the golem look like her, I guess," he then smirked. Jiraiya stared in awe as the boy started to show him his first original jutsu. He watched in silence as he went through the jutsu. Mi, Tora, Ushi, Tatsu, Tora, Uma, Yu, Tori, I, Saru, Mi. When he interlaced his fingers he gave a roar as he used his first jutsu creation. Earth style. Lethal personification. His words then brought forth a slight tremor as a huge light brown hand came up from the earth, followed by a forearm and then an elbow. Soon enough the shoulder was followed by a beautiful face. Jiraiya immediately recognized it as Kushina, the detail astounding. When the jutsu was finished, the long-haired woman was visible from waist to head. Every detail made him stare in shock. "Brat, that has got to be the most intricate jutsu I've ever seen for an Earth-style ninjutsu." Naruto smirked as he switched from Mi to Tora. That's not all. He then watched Jiraiya as he held a continued surprised look. The earthen Kushina threw her hand into the ground before pulling out a large earthen swords that actually looked combat-ready. She then dropped it as Naruto slipped into the I hand sign before he did the seals for the fireball jutsu. She then put her own hands together as he went through some hand signs. Jiraiya though swore he heard her voice as he watched the lips move. Mi, Hitsuji, I, Saru, Uma, Tora. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Jiraiya's eyes almost fell from his head as he watched a stream of flames launch from the mouth of the jutsu. "Brat, how is this even possible?" Naruto shrugged as he didn't care how it actually functioned as long as it did. "That's not the only jutsu either, she can also use water style. Water wall. Brat, this is honestly one of the most advanced earth jutsus I've ever seen. I'd peg it at A rank." His words made Naruto frown slightly. "Why not S rank?" Jiraiya shook his head as he motioned with his hand. "It can't move around, meaning it's a solid target. Its offensive capabilities are clearly astounding since it can channel ninjutsu, and the sword means close range damage. So A rank." Naruto growled as he ruffled his own hair in anger. "Fine, then the next one I make will be an S rank for sure." Jiraiya nodded before he motioned the boy to dispel it. He nodded as he went back to the Hitsuji sign. The large figure sunk back into the ground as if it was never there, the only sign being the agitated patch of dirt. 2 weeks before the return to the leaf. Jiraiya stared in shock at the ground before him. Part of the forest was just removed by Naruto's second original jutsu. His apprentice smirked with arrogance and some reasonable confidence as he did it once more. He started the hand signs, confusing Jiraiya at first for they looked like the phoenix flower jutsu, Ne, Tora, Inu, Ushi, Yu, Tora. He wasn't surprised as the boy continued. Uma, Mi, Hitsuji, Tora, Saru, I, Uma, Tora. Jiraiya's mind noted the seals for Grand Fireball, but he smirked when the boy made one more. Fire style. Lunar Bloom Jutsu. The boy's mouth breathed out 6 small flames of fire before they tore through some more trees. It then smashed together as it made a large ball of fire that burned brightly. It then burst into a long geyser of flames, before becoming a large wall of fire destroying more lush trees. "Well?" he asked hopefully as he looked at his sensei. Jiraiya gave him a thumbs up. "Just barely S rank, it not only can have a slight potential for defense because of that wall, but its offensive abilities are an absolute being as it attacks multiple enemies at one in the beginning and then in the end again if you are fighting a large group. I must say Naruto very good." The boy nodded before he sat down rubbing the back of his head with a big smile. His hair not had reached his mid-back and seemed more black than blonde. Return to the village. Azuma were called many things such as the eternal Chunin and the midday morons, for the fact they were always on gate duty, and of course today was no different. "Dude, this is so lame. I'm sick of this." He hit his fist on top of the wooden counter in frustration. "Ha, sucks for you. I have a date with Mahane after our shift is done." Kotetsu's smirk and words angering Izumo. "Not cool man, I told you I liked her." Kotetsu shook his head wagging his finger. "You should have asked her first. You know how we work, first move, first dibs. No complaints." Kotetsu merely laughed at his friend's plight as he became quiet at the sight of a long semi-blonde-haired teen. "Hey." He was quieted as Lord Jiraiya stepped up with his and Naruto's entry papers. Naruto rubbed his whiskerless cheeks as he found nobody would recognize him, his hair being almost a different color as well as not having his scars as well as dark blue eyes made him a different person to the people of the Hidden Leaf. It felt refreshing to be left alone from the glares and scathing words of the lowlifes he called his fellow citizens. "Village disgusts me." His thought of the village going sour. His thoughts turned to the Hokage monument, bringing a smile to his face as he saw Tsunade's face had been added. It's about time it was put up there. His attention was stolen as a little girl with purple eyes accidentally bumped into him. She gave a fearful apology to the intimidating teen. He shook his head as he lifted the girl up to her feet before he knelt before her. He rubbed her chin with the knuckle of his hand in a playful manner. And who are you? The girl smiled as took a prideful stance. I am Makina Izanami. She then frowned as she remembered something. But I was always told not to talk to strangers, and you're a stranger. So I shouldn't. Her words trailed off as Naruto grabbed her hand and placed it against his headband. This is the sign of me being a shinobi of the leaf. Or as some people call us, the good guys, so don't worry about me being a danger. He smiled before he remembered something. Hey, why aren't you with your mother or father? He noticed the abrupt personality change. Was she? I don't have a mom or dad anymore, they abandoned me at the orphanage, she said with a frown, not noticing the pronunciation fault, something an 8-year-old shouldn't have. At least not for this reason. Her expression of anger began to give way to sadness as she started crying. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he heard a loud voice call out to him. It quickly turned into a scowl. Naruto, what did you do to her? She yelled as she went to hit him on the head, only to gasp as the boy stopped her with his black-gloved hand with a crushing grip. She gave a shocked look at the boy as she saw him tilt his head in a menacing glare. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Don't ever let me catch you trying to hit me again like you used to. I expected you to have grown out of that, but I guess I was wrong. He let go of her hand as he turned to the little orphan girl. Well, Makina, would you like it if I visited you every once in a while? I know it's not fun being alone as a kid. His tone going from malicious back to his kind and gentle tone. The little girl rubbed her puffy eyes as she started hiccuping. Really? She asked as she gave a hopeful look. Naruto smiled as he gave an abrupt nod. He ruffled her blackish purple hair. I mean it, whenever I have free time I'll visit you. For now, how about you just tag along with me? Would you like that? She nodded as she grabbed his larger hand with her tiny one. No problem, big bro, she cheered. Naruto laughed as he lifted her up to his shoulders. Well then, you can mark today as the first day you've probably ever talked to the Hokage? She grabbed his hair roughly as she leaned over into his face. Really? She asked with joy. Yep, I happen to be the reason why she is Hokage. Makina gave a gasp as she leaned back up behind his head. That's cool. The duo then joined the approaching form of Jiraiya as they made to head to the Hokage tower. Hey Naruto, Sakura, who's the little one? He asked as he pointed to the dark-haired girl. I'm Naruto's new little sister. She cheered with her hands up into the air before squealing as she almost fell off. Well, aren't you adorable? He spoke as he patted her head. She only smiled more as she wrapped her small arms around Naruto's forehead in a hug. Sakura followed quietly, still shaken a bit by Naruto's eyes from earlier. Naruto gave a small chuckle as he felt the little girl tugging lightly on his hair every once in a while. He found himself outside his second favorite place in the leaf, Ichiraku Ramen. He could smell it from his position, and he could tell Makina could as well as he heard her stomach growl. Yo big bro, what's that smell? It smells so good. He smiled. This here Maki is the best ramen in the world. I've gone here since I was your ways had such good food and people. She pulled his hair hard. Then what are we waiting for? He chuckled at her exuberance. Alright, calm down. With a smile, he knew he'd opened the young one's heart to the best food in the world. He bent at the knees slightly as he pushed aside the flaps and entered the little ramen stand. How may I, Naruto? Cried Ayame as she saw the teen boy before she leaned over and forced him into a bear hug. When she pulled back, she took note of the little girl on his head. Well, who is this? She asked as Naruto placed said girl on the stool next to him. I'm Makina Izanami and I'm Naruto's new sister. Her hands in her now seemingly trademark motion of being in the air. Ayame giggled at the girl's response. Oh really? She asked the little girl. Naruto laughed as he bumped Makina's chin like before. Yeah, I guess she kind of grew on me. It's only been 15 or so minutes since I met her. These words made Ayame laugh. You sure it wasn't you having an impact on her? You always were one for making friends. She stopped laughing as she saw Naruto's slightly sad face. Not the kind of person I am anymore. A lot changed over the trip, Ayame. In fact, his words continued as he wrapped his arm around Makina's petite form. She's been the first person in a couple years to make me want to smile. His eyes landed on Ayame as Makina smiled brightly. Not to mention a very special brunette I know. Ayame giggled lightly before her look softened. Ayame frowned before shaking her head. You're still the same person as before either way. You'll never change enough that we won't recognize you. Your looks may differ, but you're still Naruto. Leaning over, she pushed up his headband and gave him a kiss on the forehead. Leaning back, she winked at him before Naruto saw Tucci enter. The two exchanged hellos as the small group got to get acquainted over some ramen and catching up. "Hey Naruto," spoke Makina as she rode atop his shoulders once again. He sounded as he started walking towards the Hokage tower. "What's the Hokage like?" He thought about her question quickly. "Well, she's really old, but she looks as if she's 30 or in her late 20s. She's got a nasty temper sometimes. But she burns with the will of fire brightly. In fact, her grandfather was the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju." The girl gasped in amazement. Then she gave a confused look, and Naruto could feel the question burning within her. "Don't know what that is or who that is." He chuckled. "Well, the will of fire is the philosophical concept that Konoha takes to heart, that we are one large family and we should protect each other. This process leads to prosperity and more happiness." Now Senju Hashirama was known as the god of shinobi and the creator of this very village. Tsunade happens to be, as I said, his granddaughter. She's also the closest thing I have to a mom. She's nice overall, and she'll protect her friends and family with her life. Tsunade, however, is a drunk and a gambler. To this the little girl gave a pondering look as she absorbed all the knowledge. Makina gasped as she saw the large building in the distance. "Yay!" Naruto smiled at the energetic child's reaction. She was so much like himself when he was younger it was almost scary. He was absolutely shocked by the girl's words when they entered the room. "Wow, her boobs are so huge. Scary." He stopped mid-step, Makina not the appropriate comment to a Hokage. While he was admonishing Makina, deep down he wanted to laugh. The girl gasped, "Oh, so you're the Hokage. You look better than the Hokage monument thingy." Naruto lifted her off his shoulder and placed her on the ground. Tsunade smirked. "So Naruto, it is obvious things have changed, but, a child?" She shook her head. "Not expected at all." Naruto practically choked on the spot in surprise by the joking statement. Getting a hold of himself, he shook his head in denial. "She's an orphan and she's kinda grown on me." He messed up Makina's hair, getting a pout out of her. "I asked her if she'd like it if I visited her at the orphanage, and wanted to meet you, so here she is. Sorry about the earlier comment, kids, ya know?" Tsunade smiled at the quick relationship he'd formed with somebody yet again. "So Makina was it?" The girl nodded as she ran to a couch, pulling Naruto with her forcefully. "How has Naruto treated you so far?" Jiraiya had dropped by earlier without them since the duo made a stop at Ichiraku's, leaving Jiraiya to report the trip. While some things were worth concern, others were more worth a few compliments and a smile at least. It was safe to say she was shocked, however. Her surrogate son was an Uchiha descendant, and he was afflicted by it just like the others. Why are Uchiha so difficult? Her sense of clan rivalry resurfacing a bit, and the fear that Naruto could become like her granddad's rival Madara. Naruto's will of fire was the brightest the village had seen since Hashirama and Minato. If only she knew why. Blood of the Senju, Uzumaki and the Uchiha brought together by Madara and Jun in the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki could make Naruto the greatest ninja to grace the world since the Sage of Six Paths. She was pulled out of musings by the childish squeal from the little girl. "So was it really because of Naruto that you came back?" She clasped her hands together. "I bet it was." Tsunade laughed at the refreshing experience of a child's innocence. The Hokage nodded. "Yes, it is because of him. His stubbornness convinced me to take up the title of Hokage. Something I hated became my current place of stature." She shook her head as she pointed at Makina. "Now Makina, you are an orphan. Seeing as Naruto is legally an adult by being a shinobi, he is able to adopt children." His eyes snapped to Tsunade's as she held a devilish smirk. "While being Hokage, I can do virtually whatever I want." Naruto knew where she was headed. "Makina Izanami, how would you like to have Naruto as your brother?" Tsunade was practically howling with laughter in her head at the girl's expression. "He'd be my actual brother?" She whispered, her grammar going uncorrected again. Naruto had mellowed out from the shock at Tsunade's conniving plan. "Well, it's that or being his daughter." Boot Naruto probably isn't ready to be a dad. Technically, at the difference in your ages, it would end up kinda the same way. But that just technicalities. So yay. If you'd want, I would be. I myself was an orphan, so I know the pain of not having a family. Tsunade was the first person I saw as a parent, even though I had Iruka sensei and the Ichirakus. I felt closer to Tsunade more than anybody else. So I called her Grandma Tsunade as a way to tick her off, and damn was it hilarious. But after a few weeks and some letters during my travels, I see her now as the mom I never had. Makina just sat quietly as she started to cry. She then turned on Naruto and tackled him. She cried into his shirt at the joy of having a sibling. But if she's your mom, does that make her mine as well? Tsunade smiled. Well, seeing as you're just the most adorable girl and Naruto is like my own son, I don't see why not. But, she said loudly, don't be calling me grandma. She then stood up and walked over to the fallen pair, Naruto having been knocked off of the couch. She kneeled down as she hugged Makina and Naruto. Which brings me to another point. Your surnames. Naruto, do you want to keep your last name? Naruto's smirk slightly put Tsunade off. It was all too like the one she'd caught from her only memorable moment in the presence of Madara Uchiha. No, I'd actually like to take up the Uchiha name. Jiraiya tried to suppress my Sharingan. But he won't take the pride I feel at being related to prestigious clan. I also want Makina to take up the name Uchiha. Of course, he waved his hand crazily through the air. We wouldn't use it in public until Makina can defend herself, since the name, Uchiha, still has enemies. Regardless if she is a blood Uchiha like me or not. Don't want my sister daughter. Sister, that sounds pretty bad actually. Just ignore that, she's my baby sister. Tsunade gave an unsure nod, not sure where he was going with that line of thought. Nevertheless, she ignored it and continued. Very well then, as of tomorrow you two will be Naruto Uchiha and Makina Uchiha. She stood as she placed her arms under her bust as she thought. Now that this mushy-gushy scene is over. Time for business. I want you to face off an opponent I chose for you. I need to see how far you've come since you left. Naruto stood up. This was as good a time as any he guessed. So who's my opponent? She smirked as she wagged her finger. You'll just have to wait and see when you get to Training Ground 7. It's Kakashi, interrupted Naruto, making Tsunade twitch and Makina giggle. Who else would face me on our old training ground? Sakura? Please, I'd destroy her in a battle. Tsunade frowned at the arrogance. He really has changed, she thought. Kakashi would be a liar if he said he wasn't intrigued at Naruto's hair change and clothing choice. He looked just like a young Madara, except his armor was a deep purple like the Snake Chief Manda's skin and the underclothes were pitch black. That was a scary development. Jiraiya and Kakashi had a talk about the Akatsuki. After a while it had led to talking about Naruto's developments. The resemblance to Madara was scary. Every image of the man Naruto practically matched. Except for the lack of an ocean-sized ego and a superiority complex, as well as spouting about the Uchiha's greatness. He for once was afraid that a student would go down the wrong path. Yes, Kakashi Hitaki knew it was only a matter of time until Sasuke was going to betray the leaf. It was what led to him trying to train him in hopes of satiating the boy's hunger for power. It had the opposite effect, now that Naruto had fallen to the Sharingan's power. Something that seemed to reoccur in most Uchiha. The only noticeable exceptions being Mikoto, Shisui Uchiha, Itachi Uchiha, and rumors from long ago. Izuna Uchiha, Madara's own brother. He didn't want his student to turn into the last. Kakashi smiled at the blank face of his student as Tsunade walked beside him with a dark-haired girl on the Hokage's shoulders. When Naruto stopped, he faced Kakashi, assessing his sensei for the first time in 3 years. Tsunade came to a stop next to him, bumping his hip with her own. Good luck. The woman then leapt up to a tree branch before sitting down. The action making the impressionable girl cheer as she too sat down. I may not know Naruto very well, but I can feel his power sometimes. He doesn't express it all the time, but whenever I touch him I feel scared but safe at the same time. Tsunade looked at the girl as if she had 2 heads. The little girl caught the look. What? I have to be mature and headstrong, since I'm an orphan, well I guess. Her little face going from serious to happy. Tsunade nodded with a smile as she pulled the girl to her side in a hug as they watched the match. Naruto and Kakashi stood quietly. Makina became frustrated as they weren't moving. Why isn't anything happening? She complained. Tsunade shook her head to the negative. With the refinement of his chakra control he can use genjutsu, and with his Sharingan they were quite potent. He now can't use his eyes to full capacity, but the abilities are still there, just weakened. It's like they have already started a fierce battle. The only thing ending it is the other's abilities, And sadly it looks as if Naruto is losing. In fact she was right. Naruto's eyes were starting to bleed as his genjutsus became more and more defensive until he snapped out with Kakashi, clutching his eye. His covered orb glared out at the S-rank Jonin. He pulled his blood-covered eye away as he used the summoning jutsu. Nocturnal Barrage. The teen lifted out his right and left hands with his palm up as a black orbs formed before a murder of crows and an unkindness of ravens burst out and barreled to the white-haired man. The Jonin reacted quickly as he used a mud wall, the birds embedding into the dirt before poofing out of the current realm. Just like Itachi, his abilities with crows and ravens is astounding, thought its origins are questionable. More merciless, but still astounding, he did the boar seal and then the serpent, earth style. Rampant piercing. The earlier earth wall crumbled apart before it launched into multiple spikes aimed for Naruto's purple and black clothed form. He smiled under his mask as a mane of black hair lashed out at him as the boy used Jiraiya's personal jutsu, Art of the Lion's Mane, Needle Jizo. The black hair punched through multiple trees as the more experienced ninja darted back and forth as he maneuvered through the tree games. Kakashi. He looked up as the boy sped through rapid seals he didn't recognize. I'd like to return to Genjutsu Sensei. Kakashi gave a slight nod of intrigue. Kakashi's Sharingan failed to pick up the last few hand signs as a large flare of chakra and darkness veiled over his eye different visions. Kakashi, the man heard his voice from what he assumed was his right but then heard it again from the left. You know these jutsu, don't you? Even if it's never been used by or against you. Kakashi gulped as the words were true. This is the great genjutsu of the legendary Hokage brothers Lord Hashirama and Lord Tobirama. He felt a fist impact his gut before he was kicked in the back of the knee, making him kneel before he was kicked in the face. Yes, this is the fabled bringer of darkness jutsu. Took me a lot of reading and hard work. But I figured it out, he may be a pervert but Jiraiya-sensei is a very good teacher. Naruto's malicious laugh echoed out through the darkness as his words trailed off. Kakashi noticed the ego rising in Naruto but he smirked behind his mask. True, but I can still smell and hear you. Clearly it needs some work but I'm sure you'll get it eventually, Naruto. His words dropped as he branched out with his right leg as he kicked Naruto. The black-haired boy leapt away as his jutsu was negated forcefully. He stood to take a breather as Kakashi nodded. That is truly impressive, Naruto. You are the first person to pull off the first and second's legendary genjutsu. But you got overconfident in your abilities, especially when they weren't yours to begin with. He put his hand in a familiar sign to Naruto. This is why, multiple puffs sounded. You're still just a genin. Techniques take time and effort to master. Naruto glared at the insulting clones as they echoed each other. HMPH, I'll show you what 3 years can do. He raised his hand as a guardless ninjutsu appeared with a poof. The other lashed out with freshly summoned shuriken, pelting the closest clone. Kakashi watched as Naruto systematically attacked and eliminated his clones. His eyes widened when Naruto's eyes went from the 7th clone's smoke and darted to his. Hey Kakashi, how about I show you true terror? Naruto smirked as he finished a set of seals. Earth style. Lethal personification. A huge humanoid figure appeared before the features of a beautiful woman appeared. The figure glared at the form of Kakashi. He narrowed his eyes at who Naruto had modeled it after. He attempted to fight as he avoided the incoming fists, and the occasional sword thrust. When he thought he was far enough away he paused to evaluate the situation. He gasped as he watched the giant form finish a series of hand signs. He read the behemoth's lips as it spoke. Fire style. Lunar bloom. He jumped away and evaded the 6 spheres of fire as he evaded the jutsu. A simple phoenix fire won't get me, Naruto. The thoughts were killed as the balls slammed together into a large one that shrunk before expanding into a small explosion that turned into a furious flamethrower, creating a wall of blazing fire. Kakashi frowned at the jutsu's destructive powers. The Jonin leapt away trying to get away to think over the battle further. Naruto ended his jutsu as he bid his mother farewell again. He then gave to follow the Jonin but he was too fast so he stopped before he resealed his blade from earlier. He walked through the forest as he extended his sense with enhanced chakra. He kept walking as he felt Tsunade and his new little sister off in the distance. There was something about his little machina that made him smile. Family, he finally had one. Naruto stopped as he felt Kakashi leaning against a tree ahead. He smiled and disappeared as he ran silently at the tree. Kakashi had always prided himself slightly on his hearing capabilities. That's why when Naruto's black-gloved fist shattered through the tree, he gave a wide-eyed look as he leapt away from the attack. The black hair of Naruto swished about as Kakashi blocked hard and rapid attacks. He gave a painful gasp as he felt Naruto's kick slip under his guard and smash his ribs. How is his skill level so much better? It's like he is a different person. His thoughts were silenced as he found a kunai slicing through the air for his neck. With his right hand occupied by Naruto's left fist and his left hand holding back a kick, he couldn't stop it. It was simply too quick. But the blade never hit as it stopped upon skin contact. I win. Kakashi gave a disappointed grunt as he left the field. His whole reason for being here spent. Very good spar, Naruto. I'll see you around. With that, he grabbed his book from his pocket and vanished. Naruto turned as he heard a squeal of joy. He turned as he felt a soft thud against his battle armor. He wrapped her up in a hug. You were so cool. He smiled at the easily excited child. What was that giant thing? It looked so pretty and real. He smiled as he bumped her chin again. It's how I honor my mom. He shook his head of the coming thoughts of sadness. He had a little family of his own and he had a mom now, but some things could never be replaced or repaired. Really? Your mom was so pretty. He smiled at the little girl. He caught Tsunade's approaching form. So, Mom, how did I do? He asked with an uncertain voice as he wasn't sure if it was an appropriate title yet. He gave a quiet breath of relief as the busty woman smiled, patting his cheek. You were very good, in all areas that you showed. You were smart, and became aggressive as to not let Kakashi get a chance to analyze your fresh abilities. His greatest strength was turned against him when you did that. But, Naruto's expression drooped a bit. But, you need to show restraint. You rushing in seems to be something that stuck even through all your changes. She leaned down as she wrapped her arms around him. And I'm so happy it didn't. You wouldn't be the same without it. Just promise me and little Maki that you'll at least be a bit more patient? He nodded as he looked at the two. I have a family finally. A mother and a sister. I'm never going to die now. He said with a smile. Few weeks later, Naruto had lost all of the blonde in his hair save a few minor strands, and it now reached his tailbone. With his scars gone, people rarely recognized, but the ones that did gave him burning glares. Whenever he would walk with Makina around the village to get her better familiarized with it, he'd hear whispers. Look, that demons possessed the little girl. I feel so sorry for her. Hey, I even heard that the Hokage's under his control. No way. We're gonna die if that bastard keeps living. He was getting sick of it. He should have remembered how they treated him more clearly. Because of his short-sightedness, Makina was being glared and pitied. Plus the girl was starting to pick up on it too. Hey, Maki. Just ignore the looks, he said as he looked up at the girl on his shoulders. She nodded with a raised eyebrow, but she could feel the emotion hidden under the words. Okay bro. He smiled as he walked to Tsunade's house. Over the time between his return and now, he had been offered to move into her house, being that his own was dramatically vandalized. Something he had expected to have happen. He was surprised though when she offered her home to them. Her only comment being, "It's the way a family should be." He frowned as he opened the door. It wasn't the only thing to happen. Gaara's tailed beast was removed, and Lady Chiyo had sacrificed herself to revive Gaara. They had in turn killed Sasori. Sakura had gotten some info from the man about Orochimaru and Sasuke. They would be going in a few days to the Tenchi Bridge. He was going to train Makina as much as he could before he left. He didn't want anybody attack her while she was at the house alone. While Tsunade would be around frequently, she couldn't always watch Makina, so he'd make sure she was safe before he left. Naruto held a perma frown as he walked with Sakura, Sai and Kakashi's substitute Captain Yamato. He was getting bored, and he found that after the second year of having the Sharingan, nothing satisfied him more when he got bored than a good fight to prove his skills were better. He however found his thoughts diverted to something else. He was still trying to understand how to make his first lightning-style jutsu stabilize. He wanted a jutsu that would shoot around quickly and kill anything that was in his sights. Anything he saw the electricity would kill it or destroy it if he willed it. But so far the jutsu would fizzle out and stop working upon the start. Sai tried to engage in conversation with him again, but he ignored him, settling for walking with his arms crossed over his armor. Sakura had remained quiet for most of the traveling, but would talk to Sai every once in a while. He was starting to act a bit more human, but it could easily be fake interaction. He stopped when Yamato called out, "We'll make camp here for tonight." Naruto held his leader with an annoyed look as he used more wood-style jutsu to make a house. When it was complete, Naruto grabbed the highest floor for himself. He sat with his back against the wall with his arms crossed as he thought. Flashback. Wrong, Naruto said as Makina failed to hold the leaves to her arms. Do it again. His words rough and brutal, his voice foregoing its gentle tone. It was that of a teacher now, drilling into her the techniques she'd need to survive from any vigilante villagers trying to save her from his influences. I'm trying, she yelled at him, his reaction though scared her. You're not trying enough. Naruto snapped, but stopped as he saw Makina run away crying at his words. The long-haired boy slumped to his rear as he gave a frustrated grunt. He shuffled his hands through his hair with the movement. He sighed as he went to find the young girl. He stood up before he formed the half-ram sign, focusing his chakra as he sensed for the crying girl. He had always denied it when Jiraiya mentioned it, but being a sensor was actually useful for once. He smiled lightly as he leapt to the trees when he found she wasn't too far away. Naruto walked slowly as he approached the tree Makina was in. Her initial reaction was to yell at him to leave her alone, but he ignored her and simply sat next to her on the branch with his arm pulling her into a hug. He looked up through the leaves and branches as the sun started to fall through the horizon. Look, Makina, I'm sorry for yelling. I just don't want you to be defenseless when I leave the village. You can't protect yourself like Mom can. I just want you to be ready. She looked up to him as she nodded. I'm sorry I can't learn what you need me to as fast as you'd like. She raised an eyebrow as she heard Naruto laugh lightly. Actually, you're learning the leaf exercise quicker than I am. He looked down only to narrow his eyes at his sister as she stuck out her tongue at him. Makina punched him in the shoulder. Then don't yell at me to do better when I'm already better than you. He growled as he stood on the tree branch. Better than me? You think you are better than me? He asked out loud. She smirked with a nod. Oh, it is so on. He grabbed her wrist as he dropped down to the ground with her. Then prove it, he shouted as he patted his black-clothed chest. He hadn't worn his armor in case he decided to spar with Makina. It wouldn't do if his sister's little fist broke upon hitting him. He smiled as the younger Uchiha gave a roar before she charged at him, using the Uchiha taijutsu he taught her proudly. Present. Naruto smiled as he thought back to the few days he had to train her. She was without a doubt a prodigy like himself. He nodded to himself as he pulled the purple plating from his chest, setting it aside with his ninja tool holster. He then unsealed a pillow as he lay back to sleep. Izuna's revelations. Izuna was getting concerned about his brother again. Something that only happened every once in a while. He noticed he was absent from the evening meals more than usual. He would always become defensive when he was asked where he had been at night. Based on his behavior, Izuna could only come up with one thing. His brother had a girlfriend. Oh boy, this is too good to be true. He laughed to himself as things started to click to him. He waved to the little girls that ran by him as they laughed and giggled. The village hidden in the leaf was yet to be formed, but the Uchiha clan's compound was bursting with talk about the future. He knew, however, that some wouldn't accept it. He didn't like it, but if his brother fought for the Uchiha clan, he would join no matter if the village was formed. As he rounded the corner, he found himself thinking about the clan. Its arrogance was known very well around the world. It could very easily fall prey to ideas of a coup in the future. He needed to find a way to ensure that some of the clan's bloodline would be traced to Madara if he knew his brother's prideful ways. His brother would end up with a son or daughter. Then there was the hatred he had for Hashirama. He would probably lose that child and its mother by picking his hatred over the love of a woman. Izuna sighed as he rubbed his hair. He needed to talk to Hashirama. He placed his right hand into the pocket of his black pants as he walked past the compound gates. The young man soon found himself outside of the residence of the Senju brothers. He knocked, only for the door to be opened by a girl of the name of Toka. What do you want, Uchiha? She spoke with venom. He smiled as he raised his arms to the side in a hugging gesture. I'm hurt, Toka. Can't we get past that little night? The girl frowned as she ignored his plea. Said Uchiha had accidentally saw her naked by a secret waterfall she had used to bathe. She was still angry at the prodigy. Izuna dropped his arms as he got serious. I'm here to talk with Hashirama, it's about Madara. The girl scoffed at the mention of the man. Fine, come in. Present, morning, Naruto. Naruto awoke to the irritating voice of Sakura. He had a pleasant dream of killing said woman over and over again in multiple excruciating ways. Why hasn't anyone killed this bitch yet? He pondered as he went to grab his armor. That's right, we are here to find Sasuke, of course we'll be in a hurry. He looked up at the leaving form of Sakura, stupid fucking fangirl. He spoke with a huff as he stood, patting his hands together. He held his blank face as he watched Yamato's house retreat into the ground, before turning and walking down the trail with Sai in the lead. The Uchiha's thoughts for the first time in 2 years were about the traitor. I don't care about the bastard anymore, but now that I'm an Uchiha it's my job to clean up the family trash. He looked up as a bird flew above. Yamato gave the boy a look as he watched Naruto make the shadow clone seal. He smiled as he watched the boy give commands. Well, using the clones as a way to train while traveling, and being recon at the same time. He's sure to impress, Kakashi. Sakura for once was quiet, her thoughts on the coming encounter. Finally Sasuke will be back with us and we'll be a team again. 3 hours later, Sai looked at the boy walking beside him with curiosity as he went from frowning indefinitely to smirking. He shook his head as he ignored the weird boy. Yamato signaled the three to halt as he saw the bridge off into the distance. All right team, there is a chance of running into Orochimaru, and sadly we don't know who it is we are meeting with. While hanged as Sasori, will confront the spy. If everything goes to plan, we might have even found a link to Sasuke. This had led to the three ninja crouching behind a log as they waited for Yamato's signal. Naruto however had different plans. He had been reaching out with his sensory ability. He had long gotten over the revelation that the spy was Kabuto. Of course it would be that four-faced backstabber. He continued to branch out with his sensory but gave a wide-eyed shiver as he sensed somebody he hated. Orochimaru, he said briefly before ditching his two teammates. Bridge. Yamato leapt back as he saw Orochimaru appear behind a falsely startled Kabuto, before said spy made him leap away again as he used chakra dissection blade in an attempt to mow him down. His eyes looked up as he saw a black and purple blur crash into the bridge before he heard Naruto call out a jutsu. Fire style. Lunar bloom. The chuckling form of Orochimaru slipped in taut ground as the bridge was engulfed in a hellstorm of burning chakra and air. Kabuto leapt off the bridge as Yamato gave pursuit while Naruto sensed for the Sannin. The teen smirked as he made and transformed a clone into a Fuma shuriken before he launched it off the side in an arc before using a kunai knife to alter its path making it go under the bridge. Naruto smiled as he sensed the clone stop moving but frowned as he found it was dispelled. Things are never easy, are they? He asked himself. He flipped backwards as a brown snake broke through the bridge and snapped its jaws at him. Naruto watched with a smirk as Orochimaru appeared from the snake's mouth, Kusanagi in hand. Naruto's shoulders slumped comically as he watched the event. Really? He asked as the Sannin gave him a raised eyebrow. Kusanagi? You pulled out Kusanagi against me? He placed his fist against his hip as he motioned with his other hand in the air. A mere sword could never harm me, no matter how sharp. Orochimaru scowled. Boy, I don't care who you are, this blade can cut through mountains. The snake's scowl deepened when Naruto started laughing but stopped suddenly. I shatter mountains. Orochimaru's eyes opened briefly as he didn't know where the boy went. He gasped when he looked down at the fist in his gut, and then up at the boy's eyes before he felt his stomach tear apart into a bundle of white snakes. Orochimaru frowned as he realized the boy was actually good. The boy would die against him eventually but he didn't want to risk wasting so many bodies against a no-name ninja. Boy, who are you? He asked as he felt his torso reconnect with his legs. I'm hurt, you pathetic snake. It's me, Naruto. Orochimaru was shocked at the boy's words. Impossible, you don't look anything like the Ninetales brat. In fact, you look like my Sasuke. Naruto HMPHED at his words. 3 years, a Sharingan repression and some medical applications will do that to a person. He continued to speak as he crouched down with his hands in a posture similar to Shikamaru. Not to mention some mental instability. Then yes, Orochimaru, I am very much an Uchiha, just like Sasuke. Actually no, I'm better than Sasuke. That traitor is a disgrace to the Uchiha name. At least Itachi's excuse could be that he erased a stuck-up clan from existence rather than let it make bigger fools of itself. No, I am better, and the new clan I start will be a better Uchiha clan than its predecessor. The boy stood as he looked past the bridge towards the forest behind it. The sounds of Sai, Sakura and Yamato fighting Kabuto in the background before you look at the Orochimaru with a laconic grin. I'll make the world truly fear the new Uchiha clan. His voice matching the insane grin. I'll start it by placing Sasuke's head on a pike at the front door. He laughed insanely, not noticing Orochimaru's sinking form. I'd rather you not. He spoke as he disappeared through the bridge floor. Naruto stopped laughing as he concentrated on sensing for the snake. When he found nothing, he instead settled for the faint trail of chakra he found. It could be Orochimaru's or Kabuto's, either way it would lead himself to something interesting. Hopefully, or all this time away from Makina will be pointless. He took a step and then he thought of something. I need a girlfriend if I'm gonna start the clan. He leapt to the trees as he followed the faint trail. She'd need to be beautiful, of course. I'd like a powerful mate as well. One that was beautiful inside and out. He shook his head as he continued to leap through the trees, the trail getting stronger as he continued. When it seemed its strongest, he found himself outside of a cave in a rocky plain. Snakes and caves, of course. He thought morosely. He shook his head as he walked into the dark caves. Sakura, Yamato and Sai. Sakura gave a mighty roar as she smashed her fist into the ground, missing Kabuto as he evaded the power blow. He lashed out with his chakra-encased fist as he tried to strike her heart. The medical ninja leapt away as Yamato dropped in with a fist made of wood in the form of a mallet. Sai swung up as his flat-tipped tanto carved the air in an uppercut. Yamato smirked, but then gasped as the person they were fighting with became a dead body of an entirely different person. Sakura noticed this and informed her team. It's just like when we fought Itachi and Team Guy fought that Kisame fishman. Yamato nodded before he realized Naruto and Orochimaru were no longer here. With Naruto frowned as he opened another door to another empty room. This is getting annoying, he grumbled as he walked to the next one. It too was empty. The young man threw up his arms in exasperated sigh before he turned to the door across the hall. The last unchecked door in the hall. He grunted as he actually had to force the door open. When he did, he gasped at the sight before him. There were roots and plants everywhere growing across everything. Orochimaru, you really need to quit playing with the first's bloodline. He approached the body on the first table. He felt for a pulse but stopped when he realized there was vegetation growing from the girl's eye sockets and her mouth. He frowned as he knelt to the moss-covered floor. He placed his hands together as he prayed for the girl's soul. Praying for an innocent death was something he had developed in the second year when he and Jiraiya had came across a small group of bandits who had killed a small defenseless family. Jiraiya had suggested praying for them would help the boy with the scene. Since then he had done it whenever he came across a pointless victim. He stood as he finished, heading to the next table. The victim's cause of death was a small tree growing from the experiment's chest, having lost control of the Kekkei Genkai. He knelt as he prayed for the young man. Naruto was expecting the last table to carry another dead patient, but he was surprised when he found the girl was fine. Or rather, she didn't die with any abnormal mutations. He sighed as he reached out to confirm her death. He gasped as a branch from a thin tree behind the table grabbed his hand. He looked at it as it stopped when he pulled his hand back, but when he neared the girl with his hand again it did the same. Well, that concludes she's alive, he thought as he chopped the tree down with his guardless ninjutsu. He then turned back to the red-haired girl. He summoned 2 clones and a toad named Gamashiro. He lifted the woman up as he placed a decay seal on the 2 clones on the girl's forehead. He again was shown the brilliance of seals. This seal would kill and rapidly age to death any plant life that came within 5 feet of the girl or the clones. Yo Gamashiro, I want you to tell Mom, I mean Tsunade, that I want this girl isolated and the seal renewed every 20 minutes. While it will last for at least 2 days, I don't want to risk any chances. Tell her I'll answer any questions she has when I return. The medium-sized toad nodded. Also be careful on the way out. Follow the halls with all the doors open until you find the exit. The toad nodded as he and the clones left. He made 3 clones as he turned to the door. He nodded as each clone sat at a wall with the ram sign. Sealing art. Suffocating vacuum. Naruto launched a basic fireball jutsu into the room, lighting the vegetation ablaze. When he noted everything was on fire, he raised the snake sign as he called out, "Seal." The fire died out in a blast as everything in the room exploded silently in the vacuum before a small gust of wind rushed to fill the room. When everything was cleared out, he moved on to the next hall. This one looked longer. He sighed as he opened the first one, empty. Naruto in the next hall. Naruto sighed as he opened the 22nd door on the left. As the other doors were empty, he was surprised when he found the shape of a woman lying on a bed. He approached slowly. When he stood next, he nudged her with the handle of his blade. "Sasuke, if you're disturbing my sleep, I'm going to wring your neck." Naruto's eyes widened as he took a step back. "You," he growled as the girl completely woke up. The girl brushed aside her champagne pink hair. "Oh, it's you. I barely recognize your face. What happened to you? You look like Sasuke," she commented as she pulled her bandaged legs over the edge of the bed. Naruto frowned. "How are you alive? You should be dead." The girl frowned as she looked down. "Some sound ninja that were assigned as cleanup found me barely alive. I'm simply alive in case Orochimaru needs a body. I am useless now since my legs are paralyzed. Damn sand bitch," she finished with a cursing whisper. Naruto shuffled his hair again. His personal little quirk when things got annoying. "You seem about my age," he whispered. "I'm probably gonna regret this, but," he shuffled his hair again, "if you don't cause any trouble, I guess you could live with my sister, mom and I." He crossed his arms as he leaned against the right side wall. "Regardless of how rude you can be, I can tell you are an orphan too. That's why you work for Orochimaru. You have no family." He frowned as he looked down. "Like me and like Maki," he looked back up with a small smile. "Or at least we used to, and I'm sure mom would accept you all the same." Tayuya looked at him like he had two heads before her face became that of one of anger. "What makes you think you know so much about me, huh?" she shouted as she went to stand, but with her crippleness being forgotten, she fell forward only for Naruto to catch her with his arm. He leaned her back against the bed's edge. "I know those eyes all too well. Makina had them, I had them, Gaara had them. You have that look, and I hate it. Nobody should have to go without a family." He placed his hand on her head as she pouted a bit at the annoyance of her hair. Naruto smiled. "Family is family. It doesn't matter if you are blood or if you adopted." The girl looked down as she felt something drip onto her hand. Her eyes clenched shut as she felt tears of joy. This boy, who barely knew her, was offering her a chance at family. Something she wanted for the longest time. She grabbed him in a hug as she cried into his shoulder. "Yes, if it means I'll get a family, then yes," she sobbed. He smiled as he lifted her up bridal style. He ran down the hall as he followed Tayuya's directions. He became serious as Tayuya pointed to the door. He placed her next to the door as he pushed it open. "Whoever it is, if you don't want to die, then leave." Naruto narrowed his eyes at the boy's laying form. "Still think you're better than everyone, it seems," spoke Naruto as he ran his hand through his hair. Sasuke sat up as he came to rest his blazing Sharingan on Naruto. "Who are you?" he spoke as his eyes spun. "With Sakura." Sakura gave a frantic look as she heard a loud explosion off in the distance of the base. She and Yamato quit checking out the burnt room as they continued further into the base. Back with Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke glared at the teen before him. "This was Naruto? Please, you're not the Dobi. That loser would be yelling about bonds and being best friends." Naruto shook his head. Sasuke was really stupid in Naruto's mind. "You are pathetic. I'll tell you why I look different, you bastard. It's because I am an Uchiha. I am stronger than you and I don't even need the Sharingan." Sasuke's eyes burned with anger at the teen's words. He went to open his mouth but was stopped when Naruto released killing intent in the form of his glare. "Don't you dare speak about the Uchiha as if they are the greatest thing in the world. You have no right. You betrayed the village." Even the great Madara Uchiha died fighting for what he thought was the betterment of the village in his battle with Hashirama Senju. He held his glare as the Uchiha pulled out his blade, before he reappeared next to him. Tayuya gasped as she watched Naruto stop it without looking, his hand pinching the blade flat in between his fingers and the bad of his thumb. He let his head fall to the side as he looked into Sasuke's red eyes. "I've outclassed you, Sasuke Uchiha. In every way, both ability and blood." Sasuke glared as he started lashing out with his sword in thrusts and slices. Naruto summoned his black ninjutsu as he parried and blocked each attack. The long-haired boy ended it with his own attack. Sasuke's Sharingan aided him as he leapt back, the tip of his chin receiving a light nick. Naruto sheathed his short sword before he sealed it back up. He prepared to use lethal personification, but the bitch showed up. Sasuke, she screamed at the sight of their old teammate. So you really are Naruto. The long-haired boy turned as he started doing seals as to not let Sasuke copy his jutsu. Dragon, hare, boar, monkey, tiger, dragon, ox, bird, snake. Naruto thought as he went through hand signs. Lightning style. Homicidal rampage. He spoke as he turned his hand, still holding the snake seal. Electricity started to form as he spread his hands apart in an arc. Asterisk asterisk. Die, Sasuke Uchiha, he said as the orbs of sparking death shot around as they closed in on the boy. Your death will show the start of the next Uchiha clan. He spoke with a smirk. I don't think so, spoke Orochimaru as a wall of brown snakes shot up and took the shots. The orbs could pierce anything, but for only a short amount of time. The wall of snakes continued as the attack grew weaker, before soon dying out. Naruto growled as he watched the man and Sasuke flee. He ignored it when Sai and Yamato turned their attention to the form of Tayuya. Touch her and your lives become forfeit, he said as he walked towards her before picking her up again like before. We are leaving now. Excusing a few room, this base is empty. Many years in the past. Izuna sat across from Hashirama as Toka brought some tea in. So Izuna, what is it you wished to talk to me about? He asked with a smile. Izuna nodded as he sipped the hot tea. It's about Madara. Hashirama's shoulders slumped. Of course it was about Madara, what else could it be? The man was so troublesome. What did he do? Izuna smiled, for once it's a good thing. He sipped more tea as he placed the teacup on the table. Hashirama raised a brow, intrigued. Oh really? Usually all that follows him is stupidity or arrogance. The straight-haired man teased. Izuna chuckled as he nodded, arging himself. No, this time Madara did something big this time. Hashirama shook his head. He got a girlfriend. Hashirama spit out his tea. What? He exclaimed. Izuna nodded as he laughed at Hashirama's reaction. He and Hashirama shared a laugh before he got serious and sat up straight. In fact, I want you to do a favor for me. I can easily foresee my clan acting out on a coup d'état. I want a way to ensure that some of the Uchiha blood lives, which knowing Madara his rising hatred for you will end up pushing him over the deep end. At this Hashirama got serious, and knowing him he'll choose hate over love. Izuna ran a hand through his hair as he sighed. I want you to assign a no-name clan to the personal recording of Madara's bloodline when you and him officiate the creation of the hidden leaf. Hashirama was glad his brother wasn't here. If Tobirama heard this he would have immediately started raving about the Uchiha's betterment to be dead. Lately I've been feeling as if death is calling for me. I have premonitions at night when I sleep. Each shows me dying and then years later a member of the Uchiha killing its clan because of an impending coup. I want to ensure at least one person that is worthy of keeping the Uchiha name. So I will leave you some scrolls that are sacred to the Uchiha with you. Hashirama gave the man a strange look. Izuna, you are giving me scrolls that are important to your clan. Izuna nodded his head. I have complete faith in you, Hashirama. I know that with time, the Uchiha will be reformed as the loving clan it has the ability to be. But until then I want you to watch his lineage. Hashirama sighed. Fine, I will. If you are right, then this is for the best. Izuna stood up as he bowed. Thank you. Few days later, Izuna had started walking out into the forest as he went to go find a training field to keep his skills sharp. When he pushed aside the brambles and branches he stopped as he caught the familiar blue of Tobirama's armor. He stood back as he watched the man run through some hand signs as a few coffins rose. It must have failed as the Senju cursed. It seemed he was right when a decaying body fell from the first and the second was no different. He remained silent, before he burnt the failed jutsu's remains. He then tried again, only to fail. 2 tries later and Tobirama erased the final failure. He frowned as he walked away, unaware of Izuna's presence. When Izuna knew he was gone he walked away having realized what the Senju was doing. He was attempting to revive the dead. If he was to succeed I could just leave the seals for it behind in the vault. But I'll have to wait till the time he finishes it. 2 days later, Izuna smiled as he walked out into the field to join Tobirama. So you got it finally? Took you long enough to realize a soul was needed in exchange for a soul? Tobirama went on the defensive as he glared at the Uchiha. You. Izuna raised his hands as his face showed a serious expression. Something Tobirama knew was a rare occurrence. I'm not here to fight, in fact I'm simply here asking for a favor. He had already studied and found out how to use what Tobirama called the Edo Tensei. He simply needed chakra, part of the being you wanted to revive, whether it was blood or any other form of DNA, and a sacrifice. Any bandit would do, as the sacrifice's strength had no impact on the abilities of the soul brought back into the living realm. Then out with it, Izuna. You're trying my patience. He narrowed his eyes as the Uchiha reached slowly into his pocket before pulling out a vial of blood, before he extended his hand with said vial. I want you to help me. Present day with Tsunade. Tsunade's eye was twitching as she watched the clones and toad dispel, leaving the girl to her. What's so special that she needs to be isolated from people and plants? She shook her head. She knew how to get back at him for pushing his own burden on her. Family archives with you, Naruto. Her face smiled evilly. With Naruto. Naruto felt a chill as he carried Tayuya through the leaf gates. Something happened. Tayuya smirked. Knowing your luck, it's not good for you. He frowned as he agreed. When he and Tayuya went to report, in the stead of Yamato, since he knew the most of what happened on the mission, he gulped at the too sweet smile his mom held. Naruto want to explain the girl, or should I say girls plural. Naruto smiled, wood style. Tsunade blinked. What? She asked, as he laid Tayuya on the couch to the side. That's what the decay seal is for. That redhead girl was Orochimaru's experiment into Hashirama's DNA. It seems failing the first time around didn't dissuade him. She nodded before smiling again. You are still being punished. Naruto clenched his fist. For what? Because I feel like it. Besides, I need to talk with this girl since I assume you found her in the base. He nodded before he smiled at Tayuya. Don't worry, mom won't hurt family. His words turned to Tsunade as he was tossed the scroll with his mission. Would you? He asked as he walked out. Konoha Archives. Naruto grumbled to himself as he walked through the dusty archive room. This was a boring assignment used to punish shinobi. The job: organize and take inventory. He coughed as he checked off the history of the Aburame clan. A plume of dust hitting him in the face. Never was one for history. He muttered as he checked off the Akamichi birth certificates. He slid his hands across the spine of another book. Nara clan medicine history. He thought as he checked it off too. He sighed as he leaned against the cold stone wall. His eyes opened when he heard a soft click and a pain in his lower shoulder. The boy turned to see the little blood-covered needle retract into the wall. He looked closer as he saw faint lines in the stone. What the hell? He questioned. He moved his head back when a seal appeared before breaking. The wall slid down as Naruto made out a very familiar symbol. How the hell did anybody miss this? He asked himself. Naruto dropped the short but very informative paper. He was related to Madara Uchiha, the Madara Uchiha. Then he was related to the 4th Hokage. His own father was the 4th Hokage. I need to sit down. He muttered as he fell on his rear. It can't be, he's the reason I'm an Uchiha. He sat in that very spot for another half hour before he decided he'd venture further into the false secrets. He grabbed the second one closest to him. He then leaned against wall by the opening as the boy opened the scroll. I am Izuna Uchiha, brother of. He spoke as he read. Madara Uchiha. I am fearing my death will come soon, and my brother's action of late have not made my potential passing any more wanted than it is now. I have asked Hashirama Senju, my brother's rival, to assign the lineage of my brother and his eventual child to a small obscure clan. I fear that the clan will eventually end up planning a coup d'état. I have thus asked Hashirama to make sure that the bloodline is traceable in the event of the clan's death. So, if you are not of the clan assigned to this and you are reading it, then you are my distant nephew or niece. I leave these scrolls about the Uchiha's ancestors and or past leaders among other things, including one of our deadlier water-style jutsus. I leave also a vial of my blood and a set of instructions you are to follow to the letter. No deviations whatsoever in the instructions are allowed. Upon completion, any questions will be explained. Naruto bent over into the opening as he looked for the scroll with instructions coming across the jutsu in the search. Water style. Murderous slipstream, huh? Well, it can wait, I guess. If Izuna left instructions for generation ahead of him, they must be important. He thought as he pulled a scroll that was black. Seeing as it was the only one colored, then it stood to reason that it was the one Izuna was regarding. So a list of seal and requirements. He spoke as he looked away from the scroll. He reached into the pouch strapped loosely to his waist, and pulled out a sealing scroll. After sealing it all up, he picked it up as he left a clone to do inventory. As he closed the door, he chuckled at the vulgar comments the clone gave him. Forest. Naruto sat with his back against the base of a tree. He looked at the scroll as he practiced the seal without chakra, so it's just tiger, snake, dog, dragon, and then I clap my hands together. He smiled as he continued reading. When he read the jutsu earlier, he frowned at the requirement. A life for a life. Any bandit should work though, and so he had ran through the forests until he found a camp of 2 bandits. He had killed them quickly and laid one out on top of the seal center he'd drawn nearby their camp. He then sped through the seals he practiced. Summoning, reanimation. He watched as the body was overcome by what seemed to be paper tags before a black-haired young man stood before him. The man had fair skin that had cracks forming across his body and clothing, with hair of such a dark blue that it looked black. His bangs parted down the center of his face to frame both sides of it. The man was wearing the standard Uchiha outfit from the era of the warring clans, consisting of a high-collared, blue shirt that split at the front of the waist and continued to his hips with the Uchiha crest on the upper back and blue pants which were wrapped up in bandages at the ends around mid-calf. On his waist he wore a bandage belt that held a sack for his ninja tools. The man's eyes now had black sclera with his Monkyu Sharingan standing out. Said Sharingan's design was 3 bars extending from the pupil. Naruto went on the defense when the Uchiha struck out at him with his straight katana. Naruto didn't have armor to block glancing blows from the sharp weapon, not to mention there was something different about the Sharingan the man held. Naruto gave out a forced breath of air as he was kicked in the gut. He made some shadow clones without seals as he leapt back. This man was quick, that hit was painful. He thought as the older man's katana sliced through his last clone. Naruto frowned as he went through the standard fireball jutsu. He watched as the man countered with a grand fireball jutsu, destroying his own and going after Naruto. Said boy cursed as he leapt away from the incoming flame. He landing on the ground as he formed the Rasengan in left his hand. The Uchiha, being from a time before the 4th Hokage, didn't know what the Rasengan was and tried blocking the attack with his arms. When the attack hit, the Uchiha's eyes widened when his arms were ripped apart. Naruto pressed the attack as he pursued the Uchiha, a fireball jutsu escaping his lips but also blocking his view. His lightning-quick reflexes alerted him when Shuriken plowed out the back of the fire and at his body. He summoned his own Shuriken as he retaliated. The result was a loud clattering of metal upon metal as a few sparks came to life. His eyes widened when he dodged a kick coming from his side and a leg dropping down on his left shoulder. The force was so great he let out a brief cry of pain as he felt the bones in his shoulder break. The Uchiha's clone then grabbed the boy by his black shirt and spun him into a hard throw. Naruto cursed as he came to a kneeling position. "Haku, if I ever meet you in the afterlife," he started. The long-haired boy raised his only mobile hand as he sped through seals. "I will certainly thank you." The Uchiha's eyes widened briefly before smirking himself. "Fire style. Grand fireball jutsu." The genin gasped after a few seconds. Naruto turned around with his hand open. He screamed as he felt a kunai go down his arm, piercing into the bone marrow of his radius. He narrowed his eyes as he leapt from the Uchiha. "I am not going to die here." He ducked under a roundhouse kick from the blue-haired man. He spun with his leg trying to knock the man off his feet. He failed terribly. The man leapt up over the attack before landing on Naruto's shin. Naruto screamed as he landed down on the boy's shin, fracturing it. All Naruto could do was glare up at the older man. "So this is the capability of my brother's lineage?" Naruto's eyes snapped up to his as he glared at the man. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt something snap. "That's more like it," whispered the Uchiha as the boy broke from his genjutsu-induced fight. Naruto's eyes bled as his Sharingan spun. "I'll teach you for making a fool out of me. I may not have been raised by the Uchiha clan, but I am far better than whatever they could breed. I will soon surpass even Itachi. Once I crush him, I will erase Madara Uchiha and replace it with my own name." He sped trough hand seals. You will be my newest stepping stone. Fire style. Lunar bloom. The Uchiha raised an eyebrow. Oh really? Well then I'll make sure to be quite the step. The man smiled as his closed right eye started to bleed, the encroaching flames glowing across his face. Amaterasu, he shouted as his eyes spouted ethereal black flames. When the black fire beat Naruto's, he pushed forward himself. Inferno style. Soaring death. Naruto's eyes widened as he recognized the black flames. Just like Itachi. That's why your eyes are different. He avoided the bird-shaped flame as he ran to the side. I can't get touched by them and I have no way of sealing them like Jiraiya. He leapt over a bush as he dodged the flames. Jiraiya told me there was only one weakness to this jutsu. The Uchiha spoke with a raised brow. Oh, a weakness? Well, I am always open to new lessons. The man spoke with sarcasm. Naruto smirked as he closed in. The only weakness, he spoke as he threw down smoke balls and made clones. Is you? The Uchiha's eyes widened when he heard a fist approach the back of his head. He turned, catching the boy in Tsukuyomi. He frowned when it poofed into smoke. A shadow clone, he turned with his palm raised at the clone's bare fist before flipping it over his body. Following it through with a swift jab to its throat, killing it. The Uchiha growled as he was tackled in the back before he could move from the action. A growl escaped his lips as he found his body couldn't move. Your body's movement has been sealed until I deem you are able to move. Now answer some questions. First, who are you? And second, why did you straight out attack me? He spoke as he placed his elbow into the mont's neck, right above his Uchiha crest. I know you're an Uchiha. But you are not from this generation. Everyone is dead save for Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke Uchiha, and me. So speak. I was merely challenging my brother's lineage. It is only possible for the descendant of his blood to be able to access the secret vault I set in place. I long ago asked Hashirama to follow my brother's bloodline. I knew if I died that my brother would come to leave behind the love he had formed with the woman he decided to love. In that he would give up the child I knew would end up being born without his knowledge. With my eyes I was able to see your own were sealed, so I put you in a life or death situation to break it, which while a major gambled it worked out in the end. He sighed into the ground. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the revelation. Then you're. The man nodded into the ground. I am Izuna Uchiha, the reason you summoned me, and the reason you know of your lineage. Naruto sat back as the seal disappeared from his palm, allowing the man to sit up. That also means I am your great-grand-uncle. He smiled at the boy's face. Well, Naruto didn't know what to say. I must say it does sadden me though that the clan is all but gone. Naruto shook his head. No, the clan is gone. Sasuke and Itachi are traitors, and if what you said about the clan eventually experiencing a coup, then Itachi might be redeemed. He could have killed the clan when he found out that a coup was possible. Besides, I don't really want to kill Weasel. He protected me in my youth and was one of the closest things I had to a brother. Izuna nodded as he leaned back on his palms. Well then I guess stories are in order, but first. He started before his fingers became laced with chakra. Naruto watched as he made a small seal. He then formed the half-ram sign. Naruto's eyes widened a bit as he watched the cracks on the man's body disappear. What did you just do? Naruto asked. Izuna smiled. I helped with the finishing of this jutsu. Me and Tobirama Senju decided that if we were to die we would need a way to counter reanimation in case somebody learned it. It keeps us alive after removing the summoning contract formed by the jutsu on the soul of the resurrected, while retaining life and essentially unlimited chakra. Naruto gasped at the information. Well then, when we are done with our catching up then I need to do something. 3 hours later, Izuna frowned at how the village had turned out. Did they not know the difference between a scroll and the kunai sealed inside? He shook his head at the ignorance. Well, if that is all then I must do something. As I said much earlier. The young man took out a kunai and nicked Naruto's hand. Don't worry, I'm just gonna use reanimation. He frowned. Sadly, I can't bring back my brother without any DNA from him. The jutsu only targets the X chromosome in the genetics of the DNA used if it is a descendant. Only your mom, your grandma and your great-grandma. I don't know either of them, so they will be quite the surprise. You however have read the lineage, so you at least know their names. He smiled with closed eye as he joked, let's hope they don't attack you straight from the start. Naruto rolled his eyes as he watched his uncle use the space-time ninjutsu. Summoning. Reanimation. He spoke as he consumed the last bandit's body. Naruto waited as the body slowly formed a thin and lithe woman. It's. Izuna looked at his nephew's face. You recognize her? Naruto nodded as he stepped closer, his hand reaching out to her. It's my mother, he whispered. His eyes started to water as he watched her eyes snap open. What? Where am I? She spoke. Her eyes then finally noticed the two men before her. Who are you? She asked as she went on the defensive. The older one spoke first. Mom? He asked as if the sight of her would simply wisp away in trail of smoke. Mother? I'm not sure who you are, but my child was a blonde and he was born with scars in the shape of whiskers. She narrowed her eyes when the boy started to smile. Then you really are my mom. He spoke. I went through medical alteration to erase the scars. I have black hair because I am an Uchiha. I am related to the great Madara Uchiha, and Minato Namikaze was his grandson. She opened her eyes wide at his statement. I am Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha. I will someday create a new Uchiha clan, one that the world will fear and admire. It will be a clan of love and limitless power. No more hatred. I will never allow our clan to even consider a coup. The village comes first, but I don't believe this village is ever going to be redeemed. Only a few things compel me to remain here. He smiled as Kushina hugged him. Even if you've changed, you will always be my son, and I love you, Naruto. She spoke softly into his ear. He returned the hug as she started to fall apart into slips of paper. His eyes widened. Izuna? What's going on? The man frowned. When a reincarnated soul experiences pure emotions, and becomes complete, they ascend and fall apart. They can be revived once more after this, but it will only be able to ascend once more the time after that. Well, that is it. The soul can't handle it anymore. Naruto nodded as his mother's smile held on her face as she fell apart. The only part still remaining was her hand holding his before it too fell apart into paper. Izuna smiled before he turned. I'll go find some lowlifes to use. Naruto just nodded while he sat back down staring at his hand. He was so focused on remembering the feeling of her hand against his. I'm probably trying to make up for lost moments since she never walked me around the village holding my hand like I see other children. He was so caught up that he didn't realize how long Izuna had taken when the man appeared with some clones carrying a total of 9 bandits, including 2 missing ninja. Naruto nodded as he watched Izuna perform the seals again. He face-palmed as the beautiful face of Kushina appeared once again. He activated his Sharingan as to permanently memorize her face. The redhead giggled as she reappeared. Still me, honey. Naruto smiled but then frowned. Hey Izuna, if we simply summon her then we can still do it more than once, right? Izuna nodded, understanding the boy's potential fear. Yes Naruto, we can, but I've memorized the details of her chakra, light and cheerful but with a sharp edge. I'll simply focus on other pulling chakras. He ran through the hand seals as Kushina fell to pieces again, an annoyed look marring her face. This feels so weird, she spoke as she disappeared. Naruto then waited patiently as he watched one of the bandits turn into paper slips before the form of a girl appeared, leading to a busty blonde-haired Kanuchi wearing the standard Jonin attire. What's going on? She started looking around. Where's Isaiah? She asked frantically. Naruto raised his hand to calm her. What is your name? The girl glared at him. Why should I tell you? Tell me where Isaiah is. Naruto shook his head. If your name is Karara Kazumi Namikaze, then your husband is dead just as you are. Your soul and body have been brought back via summoning, reanimation. You are also my grandmother. Karara's eyes widened as she looked at the boy and the older man who looked like his older brother. Were dead? She questioned as she fell to her knees. It can't be. We left Minato to be an orphan. She started to tremble as her eyes teared up. Naruto frowned as he kneeled to hold his grandmother in his embrace. Well, maybe it helps to know Minato, my father, became the 4th Hokage. Ao grumbled as he and Chojuro walked to the freshly repaired Mizukage Tower. The new Mizukage had only been in office for 2 weeks. Yagura had been killed by the woman. She rightfully deserved the position. The relaxed image of their new Mizukage greeted them as they stepped into the room. Don't take too long, you to know this will help Mist in its greatest time of weakness. We don't need any of the great nations sweeping in and destroying us. Chop chop, she ordered as she clapped her hands. The duo had barely exited the door when her voice followed them out. Make sure they send a smart one that is reasonable. Outside, back in my day. He spoke as he and Chojuro walked past the bone gates of the village before heading through the mist-ridden valley. Jun woke up to the feeling of Naruto's head breathing against her chest. She smiled at how calm and peaceful he looked. He really is a peculiar child. She did however sigh when she felt his hand still on her boob. Peculiar indeed. She looked up at the skylight that revealed the blue sky. At first glance he is an arrogant and rude person that take pride in a dead clan that he wasn't even part of. Yet he hold a strong attachment to the Uchiha. Izuna also said that he was getting close to Madara's own power. Which means he would be able to protect his clan. She looked down at the sleeping boy as she ran her fingers through his strangely silken hair. He was joking earlier, I could hear it in his voice. But I think I'd like tea. She stopped thinking when she felt Naruto's hand move from her and he grabbed her in a hug. He's shaking? She thought as the dark-skinned woman felt the boy's body tremble. She looked closer as she saw the boy's turned face. Her eyes widened slightly. He's crying? She thought as a frown grew on her face. Why is he crying? Jun pried his arms from her sides as she pulled him into a hug as she ran her hand through his hair. Naruto. She spoke gently. Naruto, wake up. When he still didn't wake up, she nudged the black-haired boy's shoulder. After a few tries he finally started opening his eyes. Where are we? And why am I in the same bed as you? He asked as he didn't remember coming home or anything after falling asleep. The older woman smiled. Well, you fell asleep holding my left boob, and since you wouldn't let go I had no choice. Naruto nodded as he remembered how he had fallen asleep in her arms. Sorry about that. He spoke as he leaned back. The woman smiled as she nodded. Don't worry about it. Besides, shouldn't that sorta thing happen between a girlfriend and her boyfriend? Naruto's eyes widened. I was just joking around. The girl smiled as she placed her hands on his shoulder. Either way, I thought about it, and even though I loved Madara, we never got very far. I'd like the thought of a second chance, and you. She pulled him down as she kissed him. Our perfect boyfriend material. His eyes stayed open as he pulled back slowly from his great-grandmother. He clenched his fist. You actually like me? I mean, I know I have mom and Maki, but I haven't never had a girlfriend or somebody to love like that. I don't know what to do or how to proceed. Jun kept smiling as she grabbed her grandson's hand. The boy then followed his hand as Jun pulled it towards her laying form. Then I'll be sure to be a good, efficient teacher. Her words finishing with his hand being placed atop her soft mound. Now lesson 1. She pulled him forward again. Making out. Living room. Izuna held his stomach as he sat across from Naruto's adoptive mother and a redhead that had shown up at some point. So you're Naruto's great-granduncle, and the other woman is his great-grandmother? Izuna nodded as he kept his eye on the unknown woman, getting a glare in return. Yes, it is true, I left the notes for reanimation, so that I could guide my brother's lineage in case something happened to the clan and he or she didn't have a way to train their Sharingan. He narrowed his eyes as he saw the blonde get ready to retort. Don't let your blood feud with the Uchiha blind you. A ninja is a ninja regardless of how he uses them. They are expected to use all of their tools. Besides, I'm sure that the next Uchiha clan won't have just Uchiha blood flowing through it but Senju as well. A misguiding smirk on his face. Why you? I would never do such a thing to Naruto. The elder Uchiha laughed. I wasn't talking about you, Tsunade. He pointed to the ceiling, more specifically the room above. Jun Namikaze is a branch Senju. A powerful one at that, and I know it will only be a matter of time before they end up together. The clan they start will never be opposed, ever, because if one ever does try, they will be crushed quickly. The world will fear Naruto's clan and the woman that stands beside him at the lead. He smiled brightly. In fact, I think I hear moaning. His head tilted towards the blue ceiling. The redhead burst out laughing. Oh Kami, that's just perfect. The black-haired punk is giving it to his great-grandmother, ha 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 ha. Tsunade glared at the redhead as she jumped up. Be quiet, Tayuya. Naruto's room. Tsunade's eyes burned into the dark-skinned woman. Yes, and that is my son you are fornicating with. Her eyes blazed as the dark-skinned beauty laughed. So what? Lovers usually do, or is it you're jealous? Tsunade's eyes narrowed. No, I am not jealous. Because I'm not a cradle-robbing whore. Jun looked the other woman in the eyes before shrugging and wrapping her arms around, and pulled him back into her embrace before she resumed making out with him. Tsunade snapped as she walked up and threw the woman through the wall out into the yard. When Tsunade landed in the yard, her eyes widened as the woman was already casting a jutsu. When the now fully clothed woman spoke, Tsunade's blood ran cold. Wood style. Growing carnage. The woman's eyes shook in shock as 3 large trees rose up before they snapped the tips towards Tsunade. Pierce, spoke Jun, raising her hand, before the trees dropped down, like missiles. Tsunade leapt away from the first tree to close in and punch the second, and then spun around the last. Crush, she spoke as her trees suddenly got larger. The trees seemed to have reached their necessary size as they thickened and burrowed in the ground slightly. Tsunade leapt up with her legs out as the trees expanded exponentially, trying to crush her in the wooden force. She gave a strangled grunt as she held the trees at bay, blue chakra flowing visibly as the ethereal power enhanced her strength. Her eyes widened as the force increased even more. She then felt her leg snap sideways, causing her to scream. Her eyes squinted in pain as she quickly raised her hand to stop the advancing tree. Jun rolled her eyes as she found that she hadn't been crushed yet. Izuna, however, saw that as he landed outside to watch the fight. Naruto, that is why she is a branch Mimiber. She loses control when fighting sometimes. One of the reasons Madara liked her. The boy nodded as he watched with concern as he heard his mother scream. He, however, had seen enough as Jun raised her hand in an open hand. Multiple saplings breaching the dirt. And she started only to halt. Jun, stop. The woman's eyes snapped out of her daze as her newfound boyfriend's voice gained her attention, the boy arriving to her side. His arm was wrapping around her neck as he took her down and threw her into the ground. He then leapt to Tsunade after cutting through the trees, the image of her broken leg making him grimace. Besides that, are you alright? His hand hovering above her leg, she nodded as she raised her hand. I'll just use meiotic regeneration real quick. He nodded as he hugged her. Sorry about that, but you did attack her. He stopped talking as he was bonked on the head, but Tsunade's anger gave way as a sickening pop was heard, followed by the sight of Tsunade's mark reappearing. The busty woman sighed as Naruto helped her up. Jun bowed as she apologized. In my defense, you started it. Tsunade nodded. Yeah, I guess, I don't really see any problems with you. I was just being protective, but from what just happened I guess he doesn't need me to do so. She rubbed her arm. You may have beaten me now, but now that I know you can somehow use Mokuton, then I'll kill you if you hurt Naruto. No hesitation, I will run my fist through your face, and paint the ground with you blood. Jun simply looked at the woman, shaking her head. I am not going to hurt Naruto, he has had enough pain in his life as it is. In fact, I was teaching him the things that girlfriends and boyfriends do with each other. Her hand now on her hip. Tsunade shook her head in annoyance. Well, I guess that makes sense, but she turned to find Naruto had walked to talk to Izuna and calm Makina down, while trying to ignore the irate Tayuya for missing the action. She turned back to her fellow busty woman. Please don't move too fast with him, while I can tell he is quickly bonding with you. She paused as she huffed. I don't want him ending up hurt. She raised her hand as Jun went to speak. I know you won't, but I don't want it moving too fast for him. You have multiple years of experience in the trials of love and affection, he doesn't. Jun nodded as she smiled, wrapping her arm around the other blonde. I know, I thought of the same thing, which is why I planned to satiate the male hormone teens have while also showing him how to go about things. Thus why he was pleasuring me. Tsunade blushed at the mention of the act she had interrupted. Actually, sorry about that. I just didn't give myself much time to think after Izuna told me you were up there with him. Jun nodded as they joined the little group. So everything sorted out? Asked the elder Uchiha. Jun nodded as she walked up to Naruto, standing half a head taller than him. So Naruto, wanna go on our first official date? Naruto's mouth formed a smile. I'd like that, Jun. He glared at Tayuya as she made a gagging sound. Quiet, Tayuya, at least I have a girlfriend, you don't have anyone. The girl's eyes shot open, before narrowing. I'm gonna bury you. She shouted as she fell over. I don't think so, Tayuya. He said, mocking her crippled state. Naruto turned as he looked at Tsunade. Is that girl okay? I never got around to checking in on her. Tsunade smiled. That's my Naruto, has the perfect chance to go off and fool around with his new girlfriend. Instead he decides to check on the innocent little girl in the hospital. She laughed as Naruto growled. Hey, I'm just making sure the bastard didn't do anything that will end up killing her. Tsunade smiled. I know, just messing with you. Konoha's special cases ward. Hinoka had been in this room for quite a while. The texture of the white ceiling practically memorized. She had tried multiple times to pull out the support machine only to be stopped by a few of the medics. She rolled her head over towards the door's direction, the sound of the handle clicking open. She was met by black-blue eyes as a tall boy moved into the room and an even taller woman followed closely behind. "Sue, you are awake. It's good, I'd hate to see my efforts wasted." The girl just looked back up at the ceiling. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki." These words did strike her fancy. "An Uzumaki?" She spoke. He nodded. "I believe you are an Uzumaki as well? You do have red hair, just like my mother." The girl frowned but nodded. "I thought I was the last of my clan. That thing killed all of my friends and my little sister." Her fists clenched in anger as her skin took to a wooden look before disappearing at the activation of the decay seal. "Orochimaru?" Naruto asked, the name making Jun give a look of disgust at the man's mention. She nodded as her hand came to rest on her stomach, atop the blue cloth of her hospital gown. "No, the ultimate summoning beast. I was the best seal user and I was tasked with keeping it under control. I one day woke up to find that my seals no longer worked. They hadn't been tampered with either. It was like I couldn't use seals anymore. I went to make a new one but it didn't work either. I ended up being knocked unconscious and when I woke the beast was gone and the whole cave was destroyed by what looked like it was a lightning-style jutsu. But that doesn't matter, everyone is dead now." Naruto laughed a bit, making the girl growl at him. "How dare you laugh?" Naruto shook his head. "You aren't alone, I am family, maybe no relation but it's the closest you got, well me and Tayuya. As far as I know we are the very last of the clan, however the Uzumaki no longer exist. I am giving you one chance to answer my question." She was confused now, there were 3 of them yet they didn't exist. Naruto's eyes slowly opened as he focused the chakra to his eyes making the Sharingan appeared. "You can either take up the Uchiha name, or be cast aside as a no-clan ninja." Jun raised an eye. "Naruto, don't be that way." The girl gave a hollow laugh. "Why should I? I have tried several times to end my life here, but that pink-haired bitch kept stopping me. I don't want to live anymore." Jun frowned as she stepped forward. The point that Naruto is too stubborn and idiotic to make, is, her words making Naruto glare. "He's really just asking you to join the new Uchiha clan. It will be centered around love rather than the hatred that has plagued Uchihas since time ago." The girl nodded. She's right, that was a lot easier when she said it. Naruto's shoulders slumped. "Well, at least the future of the clan has a girl to lead it when I'm not around." Jun beamed at the praise. "Well, thank you for that compliment, love." The name making Naruto raise his brow. She smiled. Hinoka decided to interrupt. "So I gain a family in exchange for simply changing my name?" Naruto and Jun nodded. "Basically." Hinoka smiled. "You can't leave yet though, you are still being overviewed." She frowned and grumbled as the two left. Streets of Konoha. Jun held Naruto's hand as they walked, the glares and looks of awe as Naruto walked hand in hand with a Senju girl. He looked to said girl, so. He started not sure what to do on a date. He felt her squeeze his hand. "Don't worry, we have all day to do stuff. Don't freak out." She smiled to him. He sighed as he nodded. "I hate being in this village." She sighed as she pulled him into another hug. "We'll go to someplace then that doesn't make you hate being here, are there any?" He nodded. "Yay, but it's not much of a place for a romantic dinner." He frowned as the girl shrugged. "Doesn't matter to me." He smiled as he started leading the tall woman through the wooden buildings. Naruto brushed past 2 men, bumping into the taller blue-haired man. "Oh sorry." The man shrugged it off. "No problem." Naruto watched the 2 men walk by before he and Jun resumed walking. "Well, the place I'm taking you is somewhere that has always been there for me. When nobody would let me in to eat, they would always let me go there no matter how their business suffered." Jun smiled. "I will be sure to thank them." He raised an eye as they walked towards the little shack. "Well, welcome to Ichiraku Ramen," he said with pride as he pushed the flap away. Jun smiled as her nose was met with a delicious aroma. "Hello, oh Naruto," spoke Ayame as she held a fake smile. Naruto, having lived life with a mask, he knew something was up. "Hey Ayame, what's up?" Jun sat next to him, her arm wrapped around his, making the brunette raise an eye at the scene. "Things are good, who's this?" she asked as she leaned against the wood counter. Jun smiled. "Oh, I'm just Naruto's girlfriend, name's Jun." She extended her hand towards the shocked woman. "Naruto, you have a girlfriend now? And a great-looking one at that. She teased as she shook the woman's hand. So you're Ayama? Where's the other one? His name was Tuchi, wasn't it? Her heading turning towards Naruto. The boy nodded. Yay, I don't sense him in the shop. Is he out shopping again? The girl shook her head. No, he's home, he hasn't been doing too well lately. Naruto realized the reason for the look upon entering. He's not dying, is he? Asked a now worried Jun. No, he just caught a virus is all. The busty woman gave a sigh of relief. She may not have known the man, but she knew Naruto would be devastated if something happened. Enough about me. How is little Maki doing? Naruto laughed. She's been enrolled in the academy, so she is either A, bugging Iruka, or B, hanging out with Hanabi. Oh, the Hyuga girl? Ayame asked as she cleaned some bowls. Naruto nodded as he heard two people walk by talking animatedly. So Naruto, the usual? But I don't know about you. The girl said. Jun smiled. I'll just eat whatever he gets. Ayame's eyes widened. You sure you want to eat that much? The dark-skinned woman raised an eyebrow. Suor, it can't be that much? Ayame shook her head. You lose your great figure, then it's your fault. Jun leaned onto the counter really curious. Her eyes were huge as she watched the woman return a few minutes later, multiple bowls somehow balanced across her arms. Here you go, Naruto, and I'll get yours. Jun stared gobsmacked at her boyfriend. 10 bowls? How do you put that away? It has to be literally impossible. He laughed. I don't know how I do it, I just do. I've been eating this stuff since I was 3. Maybe my body has figured out how to break it down faster. Jun shook her head as the woman came back 10 more bowls on her arms. She started as she saw the bowls placed on the arms. Will not be outdone. She cheered as she dug in, making Ayame stare in shock, her jaw hanging. They are so alike, it's startling. After a while Naruto and Jun were leaning against each other, their stomachs full. I feel so complete. She spoke as her arms draped over Naruto. He smiled as they sat there, a giggling Ayame watching the moment. It's so great to see Naruto with somebody he can love. Naruto sighed in content. Hey, Jun, I got the perfect place for us to just laze about. Jun smiled, then lead away. Naruto nodded before reaching into his pocket. Here Ayame, I'll pay extra since you have to work so hard today. The girl returned the charity with a smile. Thanks Naruto. He nodded as the duo got up. As they exited, Naruto's smile disappeared as soon as the flaps opened. A passing group of adults walked by, happy until they saw the Jinchuriki. HMPH, stupid demon, he shush, whispered one as he walked by, but was interrupted as Jun's fist was already lifting the man up. A shell-shocked look on his face. When he came back down, his two friends ran away with fear-filled looks. Jun then stood with her foot on the man's chest. I'll kill you if you ever say that word again. Her voice leaking with the barely kept blood rage. The man's eyes were filled with fear. She was tempted to merely crush his head in, but stopped when she reared her fist back to punch the owner of the hand on her shoulder. She stopped when she found it was Naruto, shaking his head. She slowly lifted her foot, bowing lightly to Naruto in apology. Ignore them, they aren't worth it. I learned that a long time ago. She sighed as she nodded, and gave him a kiss on the lips. Sorry. He shook his head in dismissal. It's fine. Atop Hokage Monument, Jun was impressed by the view. The sun was beginning to set. They had been talking for a while now, having gotten lost in their own little world. Naruto, she started, making the young man look to his girlfriend. Yay? He noticed the serious look on her face. This was something a bit rare, very much like Izuna. I want you to tell me what your nightmare was about. His eyes wrenched open. How did she know? How? She pulled him into her embrace, his head resting in her cleavage. I woke up to you crying while you slept on top of me. A death grip of a hug doesn't point in the opposite direction either. So tell me what it was about. Or if there are more I don't know about. She too, facing the sun, didn't catch the downcast look on his face. Memory. You are pathetic, nobody will ever love you. They hate you. The very thought of you makes them want to retch across the floor and spill their supper. Naruto's emotionless eyes looked into the dark abyss, a wisp in the shape of multiple people. Everybody hates you, you have no family, everyone you love will betray you. They will keep causing you pain. Freak, monster, demon, beast. Nobody can love a monster. When they ripped out your eyes, they were saying you don't deserve to see the colors of the world. That everything you lay your pathetic eyes on was now tainted and could never be cleansed. That woman Tsunade is no different, she will come to betray you in time. Because you are a monster. You have no family, your parents left you to the vices of this evil world. You will never find a way out of the pain. Your life is pain. You are destined to live a lonely and solemn life of sadness. This world is a world of hatred. You will fall to that hatred, it is inevitable. Your so-called mother will cast you out, and your little sibling will be killed to release her soul from your wretched grasp. It's not true. He yelled out to the blackness. The world hates you, and you know it. Naruto's empty eyes fell to his hands as images of a bloody machina laid on the floor. Tsunade yelling at him and cursing his existence, saying she hated him. End of memory. Naruto's eyes stared out to the falling sky. It's not the first one either. I've been having them since my eyes were sealed. That is the first time since I fought Izuna that they appeared. Sometimes it's a formless wisp, others it's an old white-haired man, and sometimes it's a black-haired teen who is missing one of his eyes. I don't know why I have them, I just do. Each time I argue I am assaulted by images of those close to me either dying because of me, or ending our ties in hate. Jun's eyes held firm as she tightened her grip, her thoughts going sour at such a thing. Naruto, I swear I will never leave you. I've come to find myself loving you even though we have only known each other for a few days. He held his expression. In fact, I'll show my trust. I'll tell you why I wear the Senju mark, but I am Namikaze. It is something that the Senju never speak of. Naruto, being the curious person he was, nodded his head. Some of the Senju thought they could unite the Uchiha and Senju bloodlines. Literally, some secretly gave up their eyes and others swapped blood. Some became disfigured and others blind. Only 2 people were ever able to use the exchanged abilities as well as their original holders. She glared as a peculiar person entered her mind. I was a different case and the other was my sister. That pathetic bitch. Naruto felt her body tremble in anger. I ended up taking a special exchange from an Uchiha that I had ended up befriending secretly. Senna was always a different type of person. She hated fighting but was strong. The arrogance that plagued the Uchiha even back then wasn't even a part of her being. Naruto smiled lightly as he could only help but think of Hinata and the Hyuga clan. The reason she was special was she had already swapped some of her blood. I don't entirely know if that is how it and why it happened, but a few days later I ended up making a tree and a little shrub grow to large proportions. She trembled behind him again. My sister. The bitch had taken a different exchange and ended up with a successful growth of the Sharingan. She became rude and gave up on me and my mother. She killed our little brother in a spar. She didn't even care. She said that if he was too weak to survive in a simple spar then he wasn't worth living. Me and her ended up falling into a brutal strain of fights that left us hating the other more and more, each fight getting worse until eventually our mother's, who was a civilian clan member, body gave out on her from the stress and died from heart failure. When I showed up to the funeral burial site, that bitch didn't even cry for our mother. Naruto felt a wet sensation flowing down his back as Jun's arms clamped around his body in an emotion-filled hug. She only said that it was pathetic the way she died. That any person that could die like an animal was just a waste of place. That bitch had the gall to bring up Tamaki, insulting his death as well, even though it was her fault. Naruto felt her fist clench into the loose cloth of his black shirt. And then, flashback. I hate you. I used to love you more than anything. But you aren't my sister anymore. Jun shouted as tears leaked from her angered face as she looked up at the form of her trapped sister. Her wood-style jutsu was unnamed but its effects were straightforward and purely to the point. It had started as just a few spear-like trees, then it increased in pressure. It had sent a strange and yet euphoric chill through the busty blonde as she heard the sound of her sister screaming and the bones breaking. Her hand raised into an open form. You gave up the position as my sister the moment you casted off mother's death like a pet's. Now die. Her hand slammed shut into a tight fist as a sharp shriek pierced the air as a torrent of red flowed burst into the darkening sky. Jun stared with open eyes at the ground before her, the color of her sister's lifeblood. A huge puddle forming as crimson fluid dripped across her body from the tree above her. Her body trembled as she clutched her arms. A slow laugh starting in the back of her throat. Before soon she found herself shaking with unbridled laughter. A perverse and crazed look plastered on her face as she licked her lips of the blood. Present. I attacked her and I killed her, I reveled in the blood that fell atop my person as I crushed her in the first jutsu I ever created, growing carnage. I felt a pleasurable sensation as the crimson liquid flowed around me, and on me. I however was found out by the little fuck that always followed her around. Always thinking they would fall in love. I was disowned from the clan and my senju name was stripped away, instead being given the name Namikaze, the name they chose for those that had shown they didn't deserve in the clan anymore. The only person that ever talked to me from then forth was Madara. I didn't know why. I still don't, but now whenever I start fighting I lose myself in a blood rage. The sight of blood, it gets me hot and heavy and I can never think straight. You are the only other person beside Madara to be able to stop me when I lose control. Although he could only do it because of strength, and his brother and Hashirama didn't know about the blood rages. You however are able to stop me from words and a simple touch alone. Naruto would be a liar if he said he wasn't a bit weirded out when she mentioned her fetish-like quality, but he then smiled at her words. Feeling happy that he could help her. Everybody has their quirks, Jun, nobody is free of them. I still feel a strong love for you. But I'm never going to bleed for you to get off your jollies. His playful tone cheered the woman up a bit. The woman sighed as she leaned her head on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, how does anyone possibly hate you? You're the most perfect person I've ever met. You have such an innate kindness and warmth about you. She was beginning to be tempted to fall asleep holding him, but she stopped as she felt a person appear next to them. Yo, Naruto, the Hokage wants to see you, it's urgent. The black-haired boy nodded as Genma disappeared. Well, no more daytime, he said as he lifted up the taller girl into a back ride, the woman giving a short yelp of surprise. Maybe later you can teach me something that makes you feel better than when you make people bleed. Jun smiled as her head rested on his shoulder. I don't have to, you already know how to make me feel better, she said with a love-filled squeeze. Naruto, I swear I will never leave you. I've come to find myself loving you even though we have only known each other for a few days. He held his expression. In fact, I'll show my trust. I'll tell you why I wear the senju mark, but I am called a namikaze. It is something that the senju never speak of out of shame. Naruto, being the curious person he was, nodded his head for her to continue. Some of the senju thought they could unite the Uchiha and senju bloodlines. Literally, some secretly gave up their eyes and others swapped blood. Some became disfigured and others blind. Only 2 people were ever able to use the exchanged abilities as well as their original holders. She glared as a peculiar person entered her mind. I was a different case and the other was my sister. That pathetic bitch. Naruto felt her body tremble in anger. I ended up taking a special exchange from an Uchiha that I had ended up befriending secretly. Senna was always a different type of person. She hated fighting but was strong. The arrogance that plagued the Uchiha even back then wasn't even a part of her being. Naruto could only help but think of Hinata and the Hyuga clan. The reason she was special was she had already swapped some of her blood. I don't entirely know if that is how it and why it happened, but a few days later I ended up making a tree and a little shrub grow to large proportions. She trembled behind him again. The bitch had taken a different exchange and ended up with a successful growth of the Sharingan. She became rude and gave up on me and my mother. She killed our little brother in a spar. She didn't even care. She said that if he was too weak to survive in a simple spar then he wasn't worth living. Me and her ended up falling into a brutal strain of fights that left us hating the other more and more. Eventually our mother's, who was a civilian clan member, body gave out on her from the stress and died from heart failure. When I showed up to the funeral burial site, that bitch didn't even cry for our mother. Naruto felt a wet sensation flowing down his back as Jun's arms clamped around his body in an emotion-filled hug. She only said that it was pathetic the way she died. That any person that could die like an animal was just a waste of place. That bitch had the gall to bring up Tamaki, insulting his death as well, even though it was her fault. Naruto felt her fist clench into the loose cloth of his black shirt. I attacked her and I killed her. I reveled in the blood that fell atop my person as I crushed her in the first jutsu I ever created, growing carnage. I felt a pleasurable sensation as the crimson liquid flowed around me. I however was found out by the little fuck that always followed her around. Always thinking they would fall in love. I was disowned from the clan and my senju name was stripped away, instead being given the name Namikaze, the name they chose for those that had shown they didn't deserve in the clan anymore. The only person that ever talked to me from then forth was Madara. I didn't know why. I still don't. But now whenever I start fighting I lose myself in a blood rage. The sight of blood, it gets me hot and heavy and I can never think straight. You are the only other person beside Madara to be able to stop me. Naruto would be a liar if he said he wasn't a bit weirded out when she mentioned her fetish-like quality. Everybody has their quirks, Jun, nobody is free of them. I still feel a strong love for you. But I'm never going to bleed for you to get off your jollies. His playful tone cheered the woman up a bit. Naruto, how does anyone possibly hate you? You're the most perfect person I've ever met. You have such an innate kindness and warmth about you. She was beginning to be tempted to fall asleep holding him, but she stopped as she felt a person appear next to them. Yo, Naruto, the Hokage wants to see you, it's urgent. The black-haired boy nodded as Genma disappeared. Well, no more daytime, he said as he lifted up the taller girl into a back ride, the woman giving a short yelp of surprise. Maybe later you can teach me something that makes you feel better than when you make people bleed. Jun smiled as her head rested on his shoulder. I don't have to, you already know how to make me feel better, she said with a love-filled squeeze. Naruto grunted as he walked into the room. Tsunade sitting in her chair. Naruto became alert when he saw the forms of two Kiri ninja. No doubt Still's looking for help. He shook his head as he sat down. Mom, you called? The taller of the Kiri ninja raised an eyebrow at the word. As far as they knew, the Hokage was the last of the Senju bloodline, and had sworn to never get close to another man again. Yes, Naruto, I have called you here in need of your counsel. This will be one of many moments that will lead to an either great decision or something that will have a huge price. Naruto sighed as Jun caught Tsunade's look. The older blonde's face held a ghost of a smirk as Naruto began speaking. Fine, what? Tsunade shook her head. Naruto should Leaf assist or not assist the Hidden Mist village. They have recently crushed the loyalist and simply need assurance that we are willing to help in repairs and loaning resources. You would be their ambassador for the foreseeable future. Naruto nodded as Jun's gaze fell on him. This could be the decision to save a great village or conquer it. Naruto ran a hand through his hair. Mom, personally all I want to do is take a few Jonin and take over Mist right now. Izuna, Jun and I would destroy them. The older Kiri ninja looked appalled. Boy, how dare you, we may be weak right now but I'm quite sure you, and whoever these others are, would stand no chance against multiple bloodline users. Chojuro, while still seemingly timid, was ready to fight if they had to. Naruto laughed as Jun gave the man a small hidden glare. You wanna bet? Ao's potential comeback chalked in his throat as he saw the boy's eyes come to life with the Sharingan, making his blood run cold. I am an Uchiha, none of your pathetic bloodlines compare. You no longer possess the Shikatsumyaku and thus any bloodline user you have would fall before me. Add Jun, his thumb motioning to said woman. Or Izuna, and we would annihilate you. But all three? He laughed again, we'd turn you village inside out. Tsunade shook her head. Is taking him as an apprentice to the seat a good idea? The black-haired boy leaned his hand on his palm as he thought, tapping away at his cheek. Destroy or help, destroy or help, destroy. His lack of continuity made Ao clench a fist only to stop as he continued. Or, help. He shook his head as he sat up. Oh, I'm so tempted to crush you, but at the same the fight you'd put up could kill so many innocent citizens of the Hidden Mist village. He looked to his girlfriend. Should I, or should I not? Jun's immediate reaction was a shocked look. She shook her head as she quickly raised her hands. I'm not gonna be pressured into it. He sighed as he looked at the two again. Mom, I think. His glare became evil and mischievous. I'm gonna change history. Tsunade's eyes widened. Yes, mother, I'm going to conquer Mist in their time of weakness and establish the second village of the Hidden Leaf. Izuna said I was close to his level of ability, so I might even become Mizukage while I'm at it. Jun giggled. It's astonishing how alike you can be. Sometimes. Naruto's grin immediately soured. Don't compare me to him, please. It makes me sick to my stomach. The blonde rolled her eyes before she nodded. Ao's look took to that of a narrow one as he analyzed the boy. He can't be serious. As if reading his thought, the boy met his eyes. You can join me as I go to the village of the Hidden Mist, that or perish here. The blue-haired man's eye went wide. We'll join you. Only to kill you when you reach Mist, you bastard. Tsunade nodded behind them as she pulled out a blank scroll. Well then it's your first official S-rank mission. The objective: conquer the village hidden in the mist. You will go along with Izuna and Jun. Good luck I guess. Naruto nodded as Jun walked out with the two Mist ninja. Naruto, be careful. While Mist is currently at the strength of a small village, they are still a great nation and are to be taken serious. Naruto nodded as he walked out. While they were indeed a great nation, they had only ever produced a cluster of truly strong ninja. The cage of said village, the few generations of the 7 ninja swordsmen, and a few obscure but powerful hunter ninja. This however did not include the Kagaya and Sumeragi clans, the latter having been the secret catalyst for the awakening of the dreaded Shikatsumiku. It was something in the genes that when mixed produced the final assured genetics that unleashed its bloody potential. Which explained the Kekkei Genkei's extinction. The Sumeragi were mostly eradicated in Second Great Ninja War, and the rest, save for a handful, were killed off in the Third Great War, and the only survivors disappearing into the Four Winds. Without the assured awakenings produced by the Sumeragi mating with the Kagaya, the bloodline became an exceedingly rare treasure as less and less of them were born with the fearsome bloodline limit. And without the dead bone pulse, Mist was only ever going to be at 2/5 of its max strength in its current status. The Mist would bow to Naruto and his mom, or he would kick their legs from under them and make them do so. Road to Hidden Mist Village. So you plan to take over Mist and then the other great nations? Izuna's gaze held on Naruto's back as he followed the group to said village. In Izuna's opinion it was a goal not impossible, but was nowhere near completion. He sure is ambitious. The boy nodded as he kept walking with his arms crossed. Yes, I will get strong enough so that the world can be united under one banner and there is no more need for the ninja system. I, as just agreed, will be starting with the eradication of the mist forces. I will then take over as the 6th Mizukage. From there, his voice wavered as he felt a sense of nausea hit him. He gathered his voice as he began to continue speaking. I will begin the academy from scratch. My blood clones will teach them as I was taught by Jiraiya. He hesitated again, but for a different reason this time. With a few things reserved. This set of words causing Jun to laugh. Wouldn't want them usurping your new throne, huh? Naruto smirked, as if those puny shinobi could never hope to be. Naruto's words ended as he was attacked by a multitude of screams inside his head. Everything around him came to a grinding halt as the sky darkened, and a thunderclap echoed. Ah, what's wrong with my head? He shouted as he fell to his knees, the cloth of his black pants becoming dirty when he fell against the now muddy path. I'm simply shoving the sound of the world's pain into your skull. Naruto's eyes widened as the rain's intensity increased. He struggled to look up as the sound of muffled footsteps drew closer. The world's pain. The sound of the many people that have been let down by this world. A world without hope. Naruto's eyes glared through the pouring rain at the man's words. When the man was close enough he took in his image. He was wearing a black hooded cloak with a deep maroon red for the inside of the cloth. He was wearing an orange swirled mask with a single hole for the right eye. The man's eye wasn't visible through the thick rain and Naruto couldn't see any other significant features to potentially identify the man because of his choice of clothing. This is the world's pain. An annoying and sad, yet truly pure noise. The collective of everybody's torment and grief. It's a painful sound, no? Makes you just want to kill everybody? Your voice is surely among them, Jinchuriki. The man gave a small laugh as he walked closer to the pained boy. Naruto grimaced as the noise grew louder. I don't know what this is, but you know I'm a Jinchuriki, and for that I'm going to kill you. I've done everything possible to erase my connection to that word, and you knowing about it is just another one for me to rip apart. He grunted once more as the man stood above him, the threat going seemingly unheard. Who are you? The man laughed again as the boy tried looking up. I am Madara Uchiha, your ancestor and the reason for your Uchiha blood. The rain continued to pelt the ground as Naruto pulled his head up to see the hole glow red. The man placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder only for Naruto to roughly shake it off. His own returning action was a glare of anger. You're not Madara Uchiha. I know you're not. His thoughts turning to one of his conversations with Izuna. The difference in Madara's behavior never changed unless extremely angry. Something that only happened in rare moments, and Madara was always calm, arrogant and blunt. He wouldn't skirt around what he wanted to say to somebody, he would simply just say it. Not a passive and ongoing attitude like this man's, no. He was a fraud using the power of the name, and probably a stolen Sharingan to instill fear into his opponents. The man chuckled again as he stepped back, perceptive. Indeed, I am not Madara. Naruto grunted at the obvious remark. Then what's your name? Again the man laughed as if he was hearing a great joke. Me? His gaze turned to the boy as he practically burnt into Naruto. I'm nobody, and I don't want to be anyone. He punctuated his words with a shrug. I'm only here to show you the pain of the world, and guide you down the path to making the world whole and helping it learn true peace. I want you to help me in my goal. Naruto scoffed only to choke as he was assaulted by pain behind his eyes. The screams seemed to die down along with the rain as the man slowly stepped away, still facing him. You'll see the truth eventually, and you'll come and seek me out. Until then. Naruto's eyes snapped open to see the bright blue sky as his head rang loudly. Naruto, are you alright? You just fainted. Naruto nodded as he pushed Jun away from him. I'm fine, just give me some space. He immediately noticed the hurt look on her face. Don't worry, I just don't really want to throw up all over you. The girl's expression slowly returned to a calm one as she nodded. Jun was still unsure about Naruto. You don't just faint every day unless you have a medical condition, and the Ninetales would fix that if he did. After a few more hours of walking, and luckily no more strange happenings, they had decided to find a clearing to sleep for the night. It hadn't been too much longer when Naruto's eyes widened and he shot up. The memories from his younger days making him clench his fist. His thought-clouded mind gave a shock as Jun placed a hand on his shoulder. Is something wrong? Another nightmare? The boy shook his head, lying to her. The very action hurting him as he completed the action, but it was better she didn't know where he was going to be going in a few minutes after she fell back asleep. It's nothing, just go back to sleep. He noticed the stubborn look and quickly lied again. I'm just not tired anymore is all. I'll wake you up when it's morning. He mentally sighed as he saw her face ease up. Naruto wasn't pleased with the short interaction, but he couldn't let him get involved right now. He quietly stood up as he walked into the forest with his armor hanging from his right hand and his guardless blade in his other. If you think you're taking it, you have another thing coming. He became silent again as he placed his sword in the small belt-like cloth at his waist. The sound of a string being pulled was like that annoying creak of wood when you try sneaking in a house. He gave one tug on the edges of his chest plate as he neared the light from a clearing. So, you have decided to come for it? His words directed at the figure in the distance. The person's figure was covered in long cloak with red clouds and a pair of blood-red Sharingan standing alone. He glared at the face of the person as said being walked out of the shadows. It has been a while, hasn't it, Naruto? The young Uchiha growled. Still having those irritating nightmares it seems? Naruto's knuckles turned white under the glove as his grip tightened on the blade at the reminder. It was this man's fault. Whenever he got close, Naruto could never sleep. The memories would resurface and become nightmares rivaling the ones Jun now knew about. Sometimes they were even worse, much worse. She didn't know about these ones. And she can never know. Night of Uchiha Massacre. Naruto's eyes stared wide in shock at the pools of blood in the compound streets. A limb or head cast across the gray cement randomly. Naruto mindlessly continued walking forward though. He couldn't figure out why he was still walking toward the sound of metal on flesh. The little blonde was only here because Makoto, the Uchiha matriarch, had invited Naruto to have dinner. Unbeknownst to Naruto, the beautiful woman had heard Itachi talking to Shisui about Naruto, his charge as an Anbu. The woman had decided to treat her best friend's son to a nice dinner when she overheard that Naruto was struggling with getting the proper nutrition. Naruto was in an unfamiliar place and he was now scared as he followed the path of death towards Sasuke's residence. He stopped in his tracks when he found the sight of Itachi's blood-covered person, his sword dripping with the lifeblood of his clansmen. The older man turned to face Naruto, with what Naruto assumed was a hidden attempt at hiding an emotion. As a person that held a mask of joy all the time, he had become proficient with detecting other masks. Anko Mitarashi was a good example, along with said woman's best friend Kurenai Yuhi. Naruto. Itachi whispered to himself at the sight of his little brother figure. The sight of his traumatized face making him want to stop the mission, but he knew the importance of killing the Uchiha clan for this so-called great village. This wasn't even for the village, but to prevent the fourth great ninja war. So he once again utilized his Anbu training and killed his emotions. You finally see the real me, Naruto. Does it frighten you? Naruto took a step back in response to the chilling words. This wasn't the man he had come to see as a brother. The man that would frequently protect him from the actions of the villagers. So Naruto ran as best he could. He ran from the monster he called Big Brother. He ran to the closest place he thought could save him, which was ironically Itachi's residence. The reason of his entire visit and the point of him even experiencing this nightmare. His eyes widened when he slid the door roughly to the side. You're witnessing the test of my strength. Someday, I want you to help Sasuke grow strong and hate me alongside him. Come after me and try to kill me. Naruto turned around to face the older man, turning from the side of Fugaku and Makoto's dead body. Why did you kill Makoto? Your whole family? The boy's question went unanswered as Itachi's eyes spun around and blood leaked from them, hiding the tears as they morphed into the Mangekyo Sharingan. Because you mean more than this village or my stupid clan, little brother. The night became deathly quiet before a loud cry shot through the village. Not even 15 more minutes and another cry from a different person echoed out before the night went silent. Flashback continued, second year of training trip. Naruto yawned with a growl as he woke up from another pained nightmare, focused on the night of the massacre, only to leap away as a large bandaged sword smashed into the ground. His eyes widened as he saw the form of Kisame Hoshigaki. So it seems the little brat has changed, and not just in looks either. The man's laconic grin made Naruto uneasy. If Kisame was here, then that meant Itachi was here as well. Finally come for the fox? Kisame's answer was a loud laugh. UWI. He was cut off as another spoke, Itachi. The man walked from around the tent, his arm hanging from the front of his cloak. Kisame, stop antagonizing him. Naruto soaked in the visage of the man he once saw as family. The red eyes and the premature stress lines standing out in strong familiarity. It's been a while, Naruto, about 4 months, no? Still having those irritating nightmares, it seems? Kisame pouted off to the side as he resheathed Samahata, carefully watching the interaction between the two ninja. He had to watch this twice before. Itachi's guilt would occasionally get to him and he'd seek out the blonde, or now in this case the near ravenette. Kisame had tried to figure out the connection. This was something that was exclusive to the Uzumaki boy. An action that was only for the long-haired child, and strikingly surprising, not Itachi's own brother. You know I do, you fucking bastard. Kisame looked down as he crossed his arm before sitting on a tree stump. He laughed to himself at the boy's antics. Itachi hid a smile at Naruto's answer. But at the same time he was also grimacing at the words, it was his fault. The chakra emission from the Tsukuyomi would make the boy have nightmares, whether at the massacre as a whole or his mother's death. Makoto was the closest thing resembling a mother for the little boy, so it was more likely than not the focus of the evil dreams. I merely came to see how your training is going. I need you to help kill me after all, little brother. He hated this. These false words of evil and pain. Words that would never exist in the perfect world, where he, Makoto and Naruto could live away as the perfect family. It was a strange dream of his, a blatantly selfish one. Naruto should be able to live with Lady Kushina and Lord Fourth, but he had grown to hate his own father, and in his mind, the only thing Sasuke would ever be good for was to make Naruto a stronger ninja. I'm not your brother. You gave that up when you killed the closest thing I had to a mother and stole away the only brother I ever had. His blackish blue eyes glared with a malice no child should ever have. Something that Itachi noticed was a superior difference between him and Sasuke. When the Uchiha youth had confronted Itachi in Tanzaku town, his eyes of course burned with a passionate hatred. But Naruto's, they were ablaze with pain caused by loss of a family gained as an orphan. A specific that Sasuke never experienced and thus could never display. So it would seem. I simply was passing by and I happened to have the time to torment my little brother. Kisame noticed the small movement of Itachi's suspended wrist and knew it was time to go. I leave a gift that will hopefully help you and Sasuke beat me. With that the duo left after Itachi dropped a scroll on the ground. Present. So you're alone this time? That's unusual seeing as Akatsuki always runs in duos. You come to finish off another Uchiha? His words garnered an unforeseen response. No, in fact you being an Uchiha is surprisingly unknown to me. I didn't predict this turn of events, but it brings me hope that when you kill me, you and that Senju girl can start a true combination of the two greatest clans. Naruto was confused. Sasuke hadn't been brought up, a recurring factor in the few visits he and Itachi would have through the last year he had with Jiraiya. Then it dawned on him. You never really cared about Sasuke, did you? Itachi's head tilted so he could look at the ground, his sight a terrible blur of dark brown and illuminated green grass. A happy smile breached his normally stoic face. Yes, that is the truth. I however am shocked at how long it took for you to figure something out that was that easy to realize. He chuckled as he walked forward, turning a shadow clone into a small throne before sitting down. I have come here for something that only I can get from you. He raised his hand to keep Naruto from talking. It is not the Nine Tails I seek. I have come to gain your forgiveness, and I've come to repent for my sins. I never wanted to do what I did. I really only said what I did to make you strive to get stronger and one day surpass me. I did what I did in the hopes to stop the Fourth Great Ninja War. Naruto's eyes shot open at the declaration. I have come in my final moments to you, my little brother, in a hope to get you forgiveness. I'm sorry for ruining what little semblance of a youth you had. Naruto stepped forward in anger. I'm not the one you should be looking for forgiveness from. He yanked up the tall man by his collar before head-butting him in anger. He then shoved the stunned man away. Naruto clenched his fists as he glared at Itachi. It wasn't me you killed. You massacred your whole family, and the women I saw as a mother. The young man pointed his finger at Itachi. You made me lose the only brother I had. Even if I was the one to seek out for your mistakes, I won't give you that satisfaction. He then turned his back as he began walking away. You really are dead to me. He turned his head one last time. You have one chance, otherwise you will join Sasuke as the beginning of my Uchiha clan. With that, the youth walked through the woods, intent on spending the rest of the night in his love's arms. Next morning, Naruto's mood had soured, his face depicting such a thing. The interaction with the prodigy had left Naruto dwelling in a bad place mentally. Naruto had always regretted being weak and unable to save Makoto. This was, unknown to anyone else, the real reason he wanted to be a powerful ninja. To show people that being strong and powerful didn't mean you were prone to weak points like hatred and envy, jealousy or greed. He could prevent atrocious acts like patricide and genocide. The burning fuel for him being matricide. For this, Naruto's hatred for the world was just as strong as the love for it. The Ravenet felt a disturbing pulse for the view of the world burning, a constant tempting urge to go berserk, letting out his own necessary evil as he razed it to the ground, killing and eliminating anybody that stood in his way, friend or foe, woman or child. Make them pay for how they treated him as a child. Make them repent and see the true light of the world, to see real pain. Being cozy in that pathetic little village, but not Mist. No, Mist will become the greatest hidden nation in the ninja world. It will become famous for its jewel achievement. The home for the new Uchiha clan. His mumbling brought a passing glance from Izuna and Jun. The two shrugged it off, knowing it was better to simply lead their descendant go about his ways. They usually work out anyway, thought Jun. Naruto's gaze left the sun-bleached path as they reached the seaport. He smirked as he activated his Sharingan, memorizing the port and the mountain-filled island in the distance. So this is the beginning. His gloved hands clenched as he felt a strange emotion breach the surface of his blank face. However, his words reached Jun's ear, prompting her to ask what she thought was the obvious. The beginning of conquering the world piece by piece? She was a bit taken back when Naruto broke out in a deep laugh, the sound a creepy omen for the dock workers as his leer burned into the horizon. No, this is the beginning of me making the world pay for forcing the death of the first woman I ever loved. If hate and deceit didn't exist and wasn't necessary, she would be alive. She may have been many years my elder. But I know what my feelings were. He turned to Jun, his face a small and rare smile on his face. Age gaps seem to be a recurring factor in those I lose my heart to. Jun smiled as Naruto kissed her. Izuna stepped ahead of the little group, a confident smirk on his face. Let's go conquer some bitches. Retired Mist Chunin Sobuo Aramaki slowly inched away from the horrible situation. His mind was fraught with sadness and anger. The day had gone from another average Mist day to a scene straight from a horror film. Running along the back alley, the man's words were replaying in his head. This couldn't be happening. Why would Konoha attack us? We've never been at odds, why attack us? His outraged questions fell on no ears as the rain continued to pour. Was this really a declaration of war? Mai Terumi's eyes watched the rain as it cascaded against her office's window. So much was changing, so much had changed. As a little girl she'd never imagined herself sitting here, in the seat of the Mizukage. But a few years ago she saw that she had to do something, anything to end the rule of that murder Yagura. No, not just saw, felt, heard, smelt, tasted the need for change. The need for betterment of the village. Killing bloodline members was nothing but a show of fear. Using that she had seized the initiative and started the rebellion, and just 5 months ago she had succeeded and killed Yagura, Sanbi and all. It had nearly killed her, but in the end all that matters was she hadn't, and she could lead her beloved home into a prosperous future. A small smile was reflected back to her from the rain-pattered window. Another day in mist, another beautiful day in her home. Then her smile faded. She couldn't explain the unease she kept feeling. Everything was fine. Nothing was wrong, no alarms, no floods. But yet she felt as if nothing was right. Everything was off. Shaking her head she pressed the intercom to ask one of the staff to bring her some tea. In nothing but splendidly punctual timing a woman opened the door, a tray with a tea-filled container and porcelain cups. Before the door could close a man was rushing up after her, panic on his face and horror in his voice as he shouted. The words indecipherable stayed as such as a geyser of water broke into and through the tower of water. When the concentrated water finally stopped, there was no sigh of the woman or the man. The situation happened so soon she was still coming to terms when the sound of water-dampened explosions hit her ears. Slowly turning her eyes she was met with the sight of villagers running in terror as rampant fire and trees tore apart everything around the village entrance. An attack so soon? This was precisely why she had sent Ao and Chojuro to seek out help from Konoha. But the trees? Did Konoha for some reason seek conquest instead? Shaking her head clear she rushed off towards the commotion. A crazed smile broke across Naruto's face as he watched his attack fade away. Jun and Izuna took that as their signal and began their assault on the village. The scent of burning wood, steam, and flesh reached him soon enough, like was for the form of one red-headed Mizukage. A look of hurt but also anger were visible not only on her face but in the way she held herself. Who are you and why are you attacking my village? Sending chakra to his palm seal, a metal and cloth item. He then tied it loosely around his neck. Mei's fist clenched. Don't get me wrong, we received word. Poor ol' Mist is scared someone will swoop in and take over. Naruto's face became that of evil as he gestured to the destruction in himself. And here I am. Emphasizing his words, the boy was upon the woman like a flash of light, smoke clearing with the rain as a shortened version of his precious blade sovereign lashed out. The woman's eyes shot open as she leaned back a tad before replying with an attack of her own. Her fist, with the respectable strength of a cage, slammed into Naruto's shoulder, making for an opening which was a kick at the boy's knee. Seeing it coming, Naruto quickly bent his leg at his knee and turned with the impact. But she was a cage and her speed was as such. Mei's other leg was already up and into his gut, launching him into a burning ruin of a house. Naruto shook out the cobwebs as he pulled himself up. Sharingan blazing with fury, Mei nearly gave up the fight from the simple look the boy gave her. While his eyes displayed anger, his face was as emotionless as a mannequin. You will bow or die. The boy was again in front of her with astonishing speed, the woman still not expecting the sudden appearance, sovereign ready to run her through. The blade strangely hit its mark, but not so strangely water bled from the entry wound. All happening in a short span of time. Naruto shot away quickly, leaving his sword to get electrified as the water clone became a living conductor. Palming his forehead he took a breather. Anger had taken the reins for a period of time that almost cost him. The break was short-lived as he heard the telltale whistle of Kunai approaching. Quickly his ninjutsu was summoned to his hand and in a precise trio of slashes he knocked them from their paths. Unable to find her he simply stood at guard. Jun's eyes were blank like paper. The jutsu she cast were quick and brutal, killing and demolishing anything in their paths. Killing people had never really bothered her. She'd been raised with it as a common everyday triviality. As her foot crushed the throat of a mist shinobi, a brief thought ran through her mind. What if she hadn't been born where and when she had? Would she have been like her mom? A simple civilian who cheered on the community in her own way? Or did destiny or fate or whatever mystic wheel decided she'd always be here, where she currently was, a warrior of trade and entertainment. HMPH, whatever got into my head. I'm a shinobi, this is what I do. Her words followed along as her attacks carried on in intensity. As if standing in front of her the entire time, a man stood between Jun and a cowering man and elder, stopping her onslaught with a simple katana. With the flat of the sword to the bottom of her foot, they were at a brief impasse as she looked into the man's weary eyes before she pushed away. His eyes carry experience. He's not fodder like the others I've come across. She would be right. The man standing before her was none other Tsurugi, the current Hunter Nin commander and also the one to have the second longest command since the first. As the two civilians took their chance to flee, the man moved into a two-handed stance. On guard and waiting for Jun's move. Izuna, very much like Jun, was a true shinobi, able to do what needed to be done without a hint of restrictive emotion. His grip relinquished the hold of a random jonin. His instincts suddenly screamed at him, telling him to move. Doing so, he avoided a heated blast of water. Following the attack back to its caster, he was met at the sight of a green-eyed, brown-haired teen. Adorning his head and shoulders was a shark-like hoodie. Distinguishing features were that of two purple marks under each eye, not unlike that of a shark's tooth. The boy gave brief pause before he was upon Izuna, arm reaching back to lash out, eyes filled with anger. This person was known as Kajika, an experienced jonin known for his cruelty and unknown to most was currently the vice commander of Aqua, Kiri's Anbu equivalent. His prey never escaped, and he was notorious for getting the job done. Raising his arms in a crossed defense, Izuna took the brunt of the attack and skid back. Izuna sighed. Why do I always get on the bad side of people? All it was a simple kick to the shin, but it still hurt, and with a roar of pain Mei struck back at the intruder. Her blue dress fluttered about as her attacks hit air. The fight was now in full swing, but for Mei it felt like it was already reaching its end. Something felt wrong and she utterly could not explain it. Lava style. Melting apparition. Unnecessarily, Naruto flipped backwards until he had reached what he thought was a safe distance. Eyes settling on Mei, he was taken in surprise by the rushing forward attack. A brown-orange mass of seemingly sludge made its way towards him as quick as a bullet. With just the barest of moments to react, he used Monarch to cut away his armor. Misjudgment was an automatic notification as the sludge was barely halted by the purple armor. Cursing, he panicked, Shun shining as fast as possible. The sludge had barely grazed his chest. The tingle of pain that was left was a clear whisper to Naruto that he had just walked past death. Mei wiped a droplet of the liquid from her lip with the pad of her thumb. Her eyes were wandering over Naruto's chest as he shed the ruined top. An eyebrow rose at the black markings across his chest. You know, I never took you for one to enjoy ink. You sure are an interesting person. With a huff she shook her head. Too bad. You may be interesting, but you fucked up the moment you came here, kid. Naruto gave her a look of contempt, similar to each time before he suddenly appeared before her, poised to attack. Eyes widening, she raised up her arms to cushion the blow. How does he get so close so fast? He's moving so fast I can't hear his feet. Grabbing his still outstretched arm, she let go as her leg kicked out, launching him backwards. With grace he landed on his feet and was upon her, foot surging for her upper torso. As if he was placed in space, all form of oxygen left his lungs as Mei's heel slammed into him full bore. Disoriented and caught off guard, he stumbled backwards, trying to regain his breath, movement aided by the momentum of the hit. What good does a Sharingan do when it's you being predicted? Resisting the rise of his stomach contents, he cursed at the woman before him. When he was finally steady, he attacked again. But this time the outcome was much worse. The feeling that Mei had earlier was quickly vanishing as her kunai knife plunged into his side. The sudden shock and pain slowed Naruto down and gave Mei the chance to kick him away once more. Damn, you really are fast, kid. That was supposed to be your heart. Pushing her hair away, she flicked the kunai free of his blood. Took me a while to figure out why I couldn't anticipate your movements. No matter how fast a person gets, they still make noise when they run, Walker, no matter how quiet they try to be. Naruto grimaced as his fingers probed the wound. Some are better than others, but in battle, they aren't silent. Then I figured it out. You don't run at me. You jump, and kid, that is one hell of an idea. By now Naruto was standing tall. Mei's brow rose up. Ooh, then there's that, she said, pointing at his bruised chest and then bloody side. You're healing already. Naruto's gloved finger flipped her off while his other hand slid across the blood on his side. Oh yay, oh so impressive, right? Doesn't mean I'm not gonna kill you. Placing his hands together, he began molding chakra before he took his blood-covered hand and rubbed it across the black markings on his chest. Dead Soul Jutsu. With a puff of smoke, the dreadful feeling came back stronger than ever, as if it never even left. A lesson from my studies under Jiraiya of the Sannin. 6 dead bodies rushed forward from the cover of the smoke. The first one crossed over to Mei's left from her right, katana sliding across her quick to respond kunai. Each one after repeated the same but in alternating form. When the 6th one finished attacking, they looped back and fell upon her in a circle of deadly force. Burning through hand signs, she unleashed a cloud of vapor into their paths. They didn't scream in pain and they didn't hesitate as they brought their blades down together. However, unlike what would be expected, the blades never hit. A font of chakra-infused water gushed up from the ground, compacted around her form, then proceeded to expand away from Mei, expunging the reanimated cadavers from her immediate vicinity. Ninja Art. Symphony of a Million Droplets. When the vapor and water cleared away, Mei's face was nothing but calm thought. The eyes showed nothing but promised pain. Water cascaded across her body in a torrent of power before. I'm gonna kick your ass, kid, like Kami crushing a boulder. Naruto scoffed, but you're the boulder. Mei paused as she stared at Naruto's blatant arrogance. Do you really believe your own hype that much? Naruto stood fast with his ninjutsu, his words trailing after him as he charged. I am the hype. Mei tossed down her hands as a circle of water formed above them and spheres of speeding water assaulted the boy's encroaching form. Using his Sharingan, he weaved through them effortlessly. 5 feet away from Mei, blade swinging in a simple slash, he was rebuffed by a torrent of liquid. When his moment, as well as the water, ceased their momentum, he was berated by another blast of water. The force of the attack was like being hit with a boulder to the face. Unable to fight it, he was again assaulted by more water being launched upwards. He was hit by a follow-up blast, knocking him back down. A final hit struck him in his defenseless back, throwing him towards her, sequentially getting hit by a thrust of her heel into his bare gut. The oxygen in his lungs rushed out and he flew backwards. Not one to give in so easily, he stood up, spitting water out of his mouth and shaking his hair free of the very same liquid. He looked down to his chest, feeling the chakra-laced ink slowly fade away as his jutsu lost its hold and failed. Seeing his look of confusion, she answered to his misfortune. My vapor-style Kekkei Genkai doesn't wash away, it keeps burning until I tell it not to. Ninja Art. Symphony of a Million Droplets. Final movement. Soul of the Angry Ocean. With an elegant flourish of her arms, a collection of amassed water surrounded her. Her motions finished by placing both of her palms together, hands open and fingers splayed out evenly. The water channeled along her arms and launched forward into the singular form of Naruto. The gushing wave of water eventually subsided. A portion of the ground and buildings were torn apart. Laying in the destroyed wake was the prone, sprawled-out form of Naruto. Seemingly unconscious, his body was bloodied as caused by the sheer pressure having damaged flesh. She unveiled another kunai and carefully approached. With her jutsu now cancelled and her chakra exhausted, she eyed the body carefully as she neared more and more toward the perpetrator of her village. She wanted nothing but to collapse as she felt the stillness of the village around her. All the intruders had either quit or were forced to quit, so to speak. She would admit the kid was meant for fighting, it came so naturally to him. But it was done, or so she thought. Kicking it caused it to pop into smoke. Caught off so badly by the exhaustion, she failed to react quick enough as a body broke the smoke line and a blade ran across her skin. The sharp metal sliced through her skin like butter, starting at her hip and moving its way up till it slid over the inside of her right, before running over her throat up and across her right eye. The higher the blade got, the more shallow the cut was, but it still cut through her lower and upper eyelid. As the blood leaked from her wound, she screamed in pain. Naruto's black boot slammed her in the shoulder and threw her to the soaked ground. As she tried to pull herself up, she was pushed back down by a boot to her left shoulder. His blade was poised to penetrate her throat and his tired eyes were burning into hers. Even a juggernaut like him was tired, and it showed as he couldn't maintain the chakra to his eyes. Not from a lack of chakra, but simply fatigued. Yield. I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to show mercy either. She glared up at him. No. I will not watch and stand by passively as some brat takes over my village after I just saved it from the brink of total chaos. Naruto moved his blade, the flat of the ninja, to raising her head. I will kill you if that is your final answer. He looked up in alarm as he felt Jun's chakra waver. You want to rule your village. You want peace and prosperity. You can help with that. Be my advisor then. I'm not stupid, I don't know the first thing about ruling a village, you do. Or at least I'd assume you do. Mei's eyes revealed the anger she held for the boy before her. But she wouldn't lie, she did dislike the offer he gave her. She'd be able to live, help keep her village together in one piece, and maybe even get strong enough to kill him and take the village back. I accept your offer. Naruto's face took on a smile. Great. Jun coughed as the man quickly broke through her defenses and planted his foot into her gut. While stunned, he lashed out and struck with his blade. Jun reacted quick enough, but the force was great enough that she slid slightly as he hit her kunai. In a fight between shinobi, words tend not to be used. But I feel just by looking at you that I should spare some words. You look troubled, conflicted. Jun's leg snapped into the man's arm as she glared at him. Like you know anything, brat. Tsurugi raised an eye at that as he pushed her away and stuck with his sword. As I was saying, I can see it. You don't want to fight. But what reason could be for that? Jun's eyes narrowed as she felt anger rise up in herself. I'm half tempted to blow up this entire damn village right now. Anger slowing her down, she barely reacted as the man snapped to new limits and speed. Stabbing her in the wrist, he pinned her against the ground. Rushing through hand seals, he placed his hand against her forehead. Bringer of nightmares and truth jutsu. Her eyes took on a catatonic look as any resistance she once put up died away. A dull but low thrumming noise was a constant plague as Jun felt herself floating in a strange void. She was considerably confused as to what was going on. She'd let her emotions run amok as the man prattled on. Then she was here. And was that voices in her head? She shook and held her head as said voices grew louder and louder. Then they cleared up into one. Oh, is the big bad bitch confused? Oh, it's so darn sad. Jun's eyes widened as she slowly turned around, the voice lingering in her head. No, really, that's your response to your dear sister? Coming fully around, she was face to face with an attractive tan black-haired woman nearly half a head taller than her but noticeably less robust throughout her body portions. Jun's younger sister, Shinka Senju. Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint you, Miss Perfect Princess. Slapping her cheeks, she narrowed her eyes. Guess you're just gonna have to put up with me, bitch. Jun clenched her fist as a surging rush of memories hit her. Trembling, she couldn't keep it contained and lashed out. However, when her fist should have made contact, it simply slid through her body. A cruel smirk became etched on Shinka's face. Oh, you thought you'd hit your own sister? Lashing out with a kick, she struck Jun in the stomach. I'm so hurt. Jun's eyes were wide from the pain as she tried to breathe. You shouldn't be trying to fight me. Placing a hand on Jun's head, she kicked up into the girl's face. When you're busy fighting yourself. Stunned, Jun didn't do anything after her body came to a rest on the ground. The next time she spoke, the voice was different. You've never been able to make up your mind. You're always second-guessing yourself. Eyes widening, she sat up to find the sight of her dead brother Tamaki, looking exactly like the day Shinka killed him. Tears began to collect at the edges of her eyes. Closing them, the person and voice changed again. You tried with me, but that didn't work either, did it? You just couldn't get me to be committed, like you weren't all there. Madara too? For a short while she thought she was alone, but a firm but gentle hand clasped her hand and pulled her up. Opening her eyes, she was met with Naruto's face smiling at her. Don't listen to them, Jun. Whatever your mind is made up to be, I'm there to back you up. Just like I know you're there for me. Tears finally broke forth at Naruto's gentle smile, his eyes closed. Her mind, though, still fought her as an image of Shinka stalked up to Naruto's back. No more. I know what I want now. Those few words ushered a chiming bell. Shinka's image was torn to pieces before eventually disappearing. As the bell tolled, a light surged from behind Naruto before eclipsing him and eventually swallowing herself as well. Blinking her eyes clear, Jun shook her head as if she'd just slept bad and had a bad nightmare. Looking around, she heard the sounds of conflict and the scent of smoke. Her eyes landed on Tsurugi and they narrowed. Well, still wish to fight me, or are you conflicted? Standing up, he brandished his blade before her. How can one wage war upon another if they are at war with themselves? His growing smirk faded as Jun stood up tall. 2 inches taller, she struck an imposing figure. Ash and blood covered her body. Some people may be confused and disoriented by your trick of a jutsu, but I'm a senju. Tensing up in a sort of crouch, her eyes widened as her demeanor changed. And I'll fucking slaughter your peasant ass. Shooting forward, she spun with a kick and Tsurugi's guard was temporarily cast aside. Landing upon the earth, she flipped back onto her hands, avoiding a retaliating slash from the hunter nin. Still upside down on her hands, she fell towards the ground before being launched up by 2 branches of wood. The unorthodox maneuver carried her up as she unleashed kunai upon the man. My moniker was Zensha. Let me teach you pain.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.